Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome. We have a full house tonight. I believe over 200 people gathered. My official account is 157, so please again sign up if you have not done so. My name is Samir Dumpour. I'm a regional engineer in Washington Regional Office. That's east of I-95. We cover counties east of I-95. And I was asked to be a hearing officer for this public hearing. There was a substantial amount of interest for this proposed quarry, which warranted this public hearing. My responsibilities is to provide record of this hearing and written comments to the Director of the Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources. You will hear us referring to Dimmler at further text, so just not to be confused. And I would like to emphasize that absolutely no decisions will be made this evening on this permit application. We are here to gather comments and provide the record of this hearing. Again, please sign in at the back and indicate whether you want to speak or not. Also, there is a set of copies of Mining Act of 1971 for your reference, and please take a copy if you have not done so already. I would like at this moment to introduce some of the people that are present here. To my left is Mr. David Miller, who is State Mining Specialist in Raleigh Central Office. To my right is Ms. Judy Weiner, Assistant State Mining Specialist. At the back is Tony Sample, Assistant State Mining Specialist also. Tamara Eplin is a Regional Engineer for Winston-Salem Regional Office, and with her is Zach Lentz, Assistant Regional Engineer. We also have Christy Simmons, who is PIO for the department, and Greg Meyer is here. Sorry about it. Now, I would like to state the purpose of this hearing and also the format of this hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comment related to the mining permit application for the operation of crushed stone quarry located near Prospect Hill in Caswell County. And the hearing will be conducted in the following manner. First, explanation of the action for which the permit is required, which I will do. Then after that, Mr. Miller will explain the permit procedures or permitting procedures as set forth in Mining Act of 1971, and then we will go to the public comments. Comments, statements, data, and other information may be submitted in writing prior, during, and also after the hearing. Persons indicated to speak will, at the time of registration, the persons desiring to speak shall avoid lengthy statement and provide a written statement if possible. Also, they should the oral presentations which exceed 3 minutes must be accompanied by 3 written copies, which will be filed with the hearing officer at the time of registration. I understand that's not always possible, but you can try your best to do so. Cross-examination of persons presenting testimony will not be allowed. However, there might be some questions asked by one of us to clarify the questions. Optional is if any members of the Sun Rock Company are present and wish to speak, they can do so. And also they can participate in group discussion, which can happen only after the hearing is adjourned. The proceeding of this hearing will remain open for 10 days following the hearing for additional written arguments or statements. Now, I would like to explain the action for which a mining permit is required. In this case, the applicant proposed to operate a crushed stone quarry located near Prospect Hill in Caswell County. The applicant has submitted an erosion and sedimentation control plan for the mine site intended to protect surrounding areas and watercourses. A reclamation plan has also been submitted to the department for review concerning restoration of this area to a useful land once mining has terminated. A copy of this information may be viewed here, which I believe is on that desk over there. Also, copies of the application material may also be viewed upon request after tonight's hearing at the regional office, Winston-Salem Regional Office, or also at the Raleigh Regional Office. You have to make appointment to come and view the application. Now, at this time, I would like to defer to Mr. Miller for a brief explanation of the mining permit procedures as set forth in Mining Act of 1971.
As Mr. Dunport stated, my name is David Miller. My title is Estate Mining Engineer with the Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Energy, Mineral and Land Resources and Mining Program. My job and that of my other members of my staff is to review all applicants for a mining permit as it relates to the Mining Act of 1971. There are copies of the act placed in the back where the sign-up area is if you want a copy of it. I would like to take a few moments to briefly review a few specific areas of the act. If you would refer to GS 7447 findings on the first page of the Mining Act handout. The General Assembly finds that the extraction of minerals by the mining is a basic and essential activity making an important contribution to the economic well-being of North Carolina and the nation. Furthermore, it is not practical to extract minerals required by our society without disturbing the surface of the earth and producing waste materials, and the very character of the certain surface mining operations procure complete. Certain surface mining operations procure complete restoration of the land to its original condition. However, it is not possible to conduct mining in such a way as to minimize its effect on the surrounding environment. Furthermore, proper reclamation of mined land is necessary to prevent undesirable land and water conditions that would be detrimental to the general welfare, health, safety, beauty, and property rights of the citizens of the state. The General Assembly finds that the conduct of mining and reclamation of mined land as provided by this article will allow the mining of valuable minerals and will provide for the protection of the state's environment and for the subsequent beneficial use of mined lands and reclaimed lands. On page 4 of the Mining Act, under GS 7451, permit applications granting conditions, the Act states under subsection B that the department shall grant or deny permit requests as expeditiously as possible, but in no event later than 60 days after the application form and any relevant material, supplemental information reasonably required shall have been filed with the department, or if a public hearing is held within 30 days following the hearing and the filing of relevant and material supplemental information reasonably required by the department. On page 5 of the Act, under subsection C, the Act goes on to state, the public hearing shall be held within 60 days of the end of the 30-day period within any request for public hearing shall be made. The most important information that I can present to you tonight is found under section D, beginning at the bottom of page 5 of the Act. It states, the department may deny the permit or modification of an existing permit upon the finding only one of 7 criteria listed on page 7 and 8 of the Act. One, that any requirement of the article or any rules promulgated hereunder will be violated by the proposed operation. This means that the very nature of the activity being proposed in the application will immediately violate any basic requirements of the Act and corresponding administrative rules. The operation will, number two, that the operation will have unduly adverse effect on potable groundwater supplies, wildlife, or freshwater estuaries or marine fisheries. The application was routed to the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission, WRC, on September 6, 2019 for their review and comment. The WRC comments were received on October 3rd, 2019, and noted that the following recommendations. They all are concerned about the direct impact to streams and wetlands and request a survey for crawfish at the site. The WRC is concerned about buffer widths and the close proximity of overburdened pond fines and disposal areas to waterways without adequate measures. They request that planting of hickory trees at the site and the use of native grasses. The WRC recommends downstream monitoring of the stream and waterways and ensures adequate erosion and sediment control measures at the site. The application was routed to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, USFW, on September 6th, and comments were not received from the agency. In addition, the North Carolina Division of Water Resources, DWR, provided comments on September 25th regarding the impact of groundwater supplies. Their recommendations include the following. Monitoring of groundwater should begin prior to the excavation. Wells should be placed between the excavation and water supply wells. Monthly monitoring should be conducted at least 2 months prior to the pit dewatering, and recommends an adverse impact letter from Carolina Center Rock be attained. Item number 3, that the operation will violate standards of air quality, surface water quality, or groundwater quality that have been promulgated by the department. The application was routed to the Division of Air Quality, DAQ, and the Division of Water Resources for review and comments. Comments were received from DWR on September 21st, 2019, and noted the following. DWR has major concerns that include verifying the wetland delimitation by the U.S. Corps of Engineers, USACOE, permitting requirements from the USACOE, and DWR must be attained. Drawing down the groundwater may affect on streams and wetlands, and what effect the proposed operation would have on high-quality waters and buffer. DAQ commented that a permit would not be required. Item number 4, that the operation will constitute a direct and substantial physical hazard to the public health and safety, or to neighboring dwellings, houses, schools, churches, hospitals, commercial or industrial building, public roads, or other public property, excluding matters related to the use of public roads. The application contains detailed information regarding activities and finds slopes. Sorry, I thought I skipped something. Regarding active and final slopes of the site. It also contains information on blasting practices and procedures that will be utilized in the areas to cover by the application's current under review. Mining permits contain specific blasting conditions for any site where blasting is occurred. Number 5, the operation will have a significant adverse effect on the purposes of a public-owned park, forest, or recreational area. The application proposed in the application is not located within 5 miles of a public-owned park, forest, or recreation area. Number 6, that the previous experience with similar operations indicate a substantial possibility that the operation will result in substantial deposits of sediments and stream beds or lakes, landslides, or acid water pollution. A detailed erosion and sedimentation control plan was submitted with the application and will be thoroughly evaluated by both the Land Quality Section, Winston-Salem Regional Office staff, and the Raleigh Central Office staff. Number 7, the application or any parent, subsidiary, or other affiliates of the application or parent has not been in substantial compliance with the articles, rules adopted under the articles, or other laws or rules of this state for the protection of the environment, or has not corrected all violations that the applicant or any parent, subsidiary, or other affiliates of the applications or parent may have committed under the articles or rules adopted under the article, and that result in a revocation of a permit, forfeit or part of all of a bond or security. C, conviction of a misdemeanor under GS 74-64. D, any other court ordered issued under GS 74-64. Or E, final assessment of civil penalties under GS 74-64. This pertains to the application's prior operating records with the mining program and the Department of Environmental Quality as a whole. The Act goes on to clearly state that in the absence of any findings set out in a subsection D of this section, or if adversely affected or mitigated by the applicant as determined necessary by the department, a permit shall be granted. Please be advised that off-site truck traffic on public roads, noise, and potentially negative impact to property value are not under the jurisdiction of the Mining Act of 1971. These items are more properly addressed through local zoning ordinances. I also would like to draw your attention to GS 7465, effect of local zoning regulations, on page 12 of the Act. The Act basically states that the issuance of a state mining permit and any transfer, renewal, or modification to it does not supersede any duly adopted zoning ordinances. Furthermore, it is the responsibility of the local authorities, not the department, to enforce any such ordinances that may be in effect covering the projected area. The decisions on the issuance of a mining permit will not be made tonight. The authority to issue or deny a permit lies with the Director of the Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources, Mr. Danny Smith. Any permit issued shall be expressly conditioned upon compliance with all requirements of the approved reclamation plan for the operation, and with such further reasonable and appropriate requirements and safeguards as may be deemed necessary by the department to assure that the operation will comply fully with the requirements and objectives of the Mining Act. If the department denies this application for a permit, it shall notify the operator in writing stating the reason for the denial and any modification in the application, which would make it acceptable. The operator may therefore modify his application or file an appeal to the Office of Administrative Hearing. In the event that the application for a mining permit is approved Any aggrieved parties will be notified by the department of the permit issuance and its right to file an appeal contesting the department issuance of the permit. The hearing record will remain open for a period up to 10 days from tonight or November 14th, 2019. This gives those individuals that were unable to attend an opportunity to comment. You may also think of something else that you would like to add to your comments made tonight. This provides you that opportunity. Now that a public hearing has been held on this application, the department has 30 days review clock. The 30-day period starts after the hearing tonight. Should the department request additional information from the applicant, the 30-day clock would start over upon the department receipt of all of the requested information. Such a process would continue until all the department's questions have been answered and a decision is made on the application. If there are no questions, I would like to turn the program back to Mr. Dumplor.
Thank you, David. We can now go to comment procedures. Comments shall be limited to those that relate directly to 7 denial criteria listed under General Statute 74-51 of the Mining Act of 1971 that the department considers in making its decision to grant or deny a mining permit. These criteria are the ones that were explaining in detail to you a few minutes ago by Mr. Miller. Again, I will repeat this one more time. Please sign in if you have not done so we will have accurate account of people present in here. Since roughly we are talking about 70 people that wants to talk tonight, I will start optimistically by saying 5 minutes per person. If you do simple math, that's about 6 hours. So I would like to encourage people, if they have some comments that are already said, just to shorten their statement and possibly compress it down and say same comments apply, and just so we can hopefully finish this in some reasonable time. If there's any time available at the end of the hearing, I may allow additional comments at that time, hopefully. There is no particular order. I have only 1 or 2 requests to speak sooner or later in the process, and other than that, we're going to just go in order that you sign in on sign-in sheets. At the time when I call your name, please step forward to the podium, and if you have written comments, please, it would be extremely helpful to give it to us here, and we will file them, and then you can start your presentation. At this moment, I would like to start with it, unless there's any questions or Okay, so here's the full list that I have. Hopefully, there might be some more at the back, but we can start with this here. Ms. Jennifer White, she indicated she wants to speak.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Jennifer. Is it on?
It's on.
Yeah,
Fairly close. You have to get fairly close to the mic for everybody to be able to hear you. I know how we all love talking to mics, but it's
Okay.
a nice courtesy to everybody.
I have a particular concern in being here, not only as a resident of this county, but as the chairwoman of the County Board of Health. As a citizen and one who has dealt with mining and quarrying issues before, I know how divisive this process can be. The companies involved frequently will tell half-truths about jobs and tax revenue, and what a wonderful job of restoration they will do when they are done. We would do well to make sure that there are legal avenues to hold them to their promises if this project is approved. As the chair of the Board of Health and as a retired registered nurse, I have huge concerns about the health and economic welfare of such a project in this county. Documented effects of sand and stone quarrying, deleterious to the public health, are airborne particulate mineral matter, which causes silicosis-like lung disease, as well as disruption and contamination of local groundwater. All of Prospect Hill is on well water. And I know in what you read, Mr. Miller, that apparently these things aren't of concern to you guys, but they are to us. Blasting noise and high volume of heavy truck traffic may cause anxiety and disruptive sleep patterns. Heavy trucks also wreak havoc on roads normally only used for citizens and light commercial use. I am also concerned about local property values, which would certainly plummet in the face of such a project. Caswell County is one of North Carolina's poorer counties, and the value of a home is frequently the main financial security of our residents. I cannot stress enough how opposed I am to the idea of such a quarry in this county. It is truly a threat to our people's health and well-being and our way of life. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker would be Leslie Zimmerman.
Good evening. My name's Leslie Zimmerman, and I live at 732 Solomon Road, and I'm turning around because I want to see this crowd. No, ma'am. All right. Thank you for granting this hearing and giving us the opportunity to speak. I'm going to be brief, as the rest of the speakers will be presenting specifics about issues with the quarry and other intended projects. It's important for you to know who is here tonight. When this started, there were only a handful of neighbors involved. That, as you can see, has changed. Will everyone from Orange County please stand? Will everyone from Person County please stand? Will everyone from Caswell County please stand? Will all the elected and other government officials please stand? The concern is broad, but there is much more we have in common. We care about the land, we care about the water, we care about the community, we care about our way of life. We chose to live in a rural area with few conveniences. We chose to sleep and wake to nature's sound. We care about the future of this area. We are worried about all those things. I would invite everyone to listen to the remarks tonight from Carolina, with Carolina Sunrock's own value statement taken from their website in mind. Sunrock is especially concerned with the protection of both the environment of our properties and the neighboring properties and communities surrounding the company's operations. Every effort should be afforded to prevent the detrimental effect caused by water and air pollution within the communities we operate. That Sunrock said that. We are concerned that despite every effort, the risk from this quarry operation will have a detrimental effect. We hope after hearing the concerns of so many that Sunrock will be asked to abandon their plans to locate a quarry here in Caswell County. Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker will be Pat Warren.
Thank you very much for letting us, for being here tonight. My name is Pat Warren, and I live at 36 Main Street in Prospect Hill. I have deep roots in Prospect Hill going back to the early 1800s. I, along with a 150-plus strong group of citizens in Caswell and the surrounding counties, adamantly oppose the siting of the proposed 680-acre rock quarry at Ridgeville Road and Wren Road in Prospect Hill. We are united, determined, persistent, and forthcoming in our efforts. We are in it for the long haul, and we will not stand down. It is not too late. I would like to recognize our leader, Leslie Zimmerman, who continues to do an incredible job of organizing. Leslie, please stand up. I would also like to recognize our other members. Will you please stand if you have attended organizational meetings, written letters or emails, attended Board of Commissioners or county board meetings, handed out flyers, made calls, or taken any other action in opposition to the quarry? Would you please stand? It is not too late. We are in consultation with more than 15 environmental groups, 2 of which are speaking tonight, Clean Water for North Carolina and Dan River Keepers. 3 other groups and perhaps more plan to submit a report to you within the next 10-day period. These are Clean Air Carolina, Sierra Club North Carolina chapter, and through North Carolina Environmental Justice, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, City and Regional Planning Department. It is not too late. We are also in consultation with other experts, elected officials, county departments, attorneys, medical doctors, and various community groups, one of which is speaking tonight, the Piedmont Progressive Farmers Group. It is not too late. When speaking with others around the state who are fighting similar battles, one fact in particular stood out to me. Most of their battles are centered on keeping their environment from getting further polluted. Caswell County's problem is different, and it's not a problem. We're clean. We're starting from clean, and it is not too late to keep Caswell County's rivers, streams, groundwater, and air clean, clear, and flowing, and to protect our beautiful and pristine Caswell County. It is not too late. We have installed air particulate monitors adjacent to the proposed site in order to get a baseline reading of air quality. Out of 6 levels, all monitors now show the lowest particulate level. It is not too late. Our county commissioners and appointed boards cannot shoulder this burden alone. Their hands are tied in ways that ours are not. We need to support each other, and that is our intention. It is not too late. We invite anyone who would like to join us in our efforts with open arms. It is not too late for Caswell County. In fact, it is exactly the right time. Thank you.
Just throw it up.
Next speaker, Steve Pitch. I hope I pronounced it.
You did, yes. Thank you. My name is Steve Peach, and I own property on Goose Creek Road. One of my concerns is how will the streams in the watershed handle the excessive volume and flow of water being discharged? Intake water tests show that 3.4 million gallons of water per day could be pumped from the quarries. Combining that with stormwater estimates, the water discharged from the quarries could be millions of gallons per day. An example might be a similar Martin Marietta quarry in Beaufort County. In December of 2017, a Superior Court judge ruled to vacate the mine's DWR water permit, stating that the DWR had exceeded its authority by granting the permit. Why? Because there would be up to 12 million gallons of water pumped from the quarry, and water discharge would permanently alter the creek and wetland habitats by turning a slow-moving habitat into a fast-flowing stream of mostly mine waste. Now, how does that relate to the Prospect Hill Quarry? Both are similar, very similar in size. And they would likely be pumping millions of gallons of water per day out of their quarries. So conservatively, if we take 3 million gallons discharged per day over a 50-year lifespan for the quarry, that would mean that 54 billion gallons of water would be pumped out of the quarries and into streams in the wetlands. What about human life itself? According to the Virginia DMME, fly rock presents the largest potential hazard to persons of private property at or near the blast site. In their permit application, Sunrock states that blasting will be, and I quote, scaled and executed to minimize the potential for fly rock. Shouldn't they be trying to prevent fly rock, not minimize it? Their statement implies that there will be fly rock, but they hope it won't be all that bad, causing any injury or death. And who would be accountable for any collateral damage that takes place? Carolina Sunrock's core value and company motto is do the right thing. If they are unwilling to stand by their core values, it is my hope that the DEQ and state and local government will do it for them. Thank you.
If you would like to share your statements, the written statements, that would be great with us, just reminding you. If you could. And next speaker would be Virginia Pitch. Thank you, sir.
I'm Virginia Peach. Our land borders Sunrock off Goose Creek Road, which is our neighborhood's only way in and out. It is about 100 feet from the proposed blasting area. Our potential new neighbor, Sunrock, will be mostly monitoring themselves and will substantially affect our public health. Blasting is based on predictions. Much like weather forecasts, nature has a mind of its own. Employees are warned and protected. Neighbors, people on nearby roads, and wherever the wind carries fine dust particles are usually not and have no warning. Dangers of air blasts. Controlling air overpressure presents a challenge because it is influenced by factors beyond the blaster's control, such as atmospheric conditions and local topography. The DMME states complaints are commonly registered when air overpressure exceeds 115 decibels, 115, sorry. A limit of 120 dB for human discomfort is commonly used, and 133 to avoid. The recommended maximum level for air blast is 115 dB linear. Normal conversation is about 60 dB. Lawnmower, 90. A loud rock concert is about 120. In general, sounds above 85 are harmful. Loud noise above 120 can cause immediate harm to your ears. According to Vibratech's predictions for Sunrock, all properties up to 4,700 feet away from the blast site had from 115 to 134.4 decibels. Talking about Prospect Hill. Predictions. Any address less than 2,000 feet away had 127 decibels to 134.4, which was by us. They didn't do ours. The dangers of fly rock. On August 3rd, 2017, in Jamestown, North Carolina, rocks and debris from a rock quarry explosion landed in neighbors' yards, causing damage to homes. A plant manager confirmed crews were blasting. In Iowa, a citation was issued on April 28, 2016 for a fatal accident about 1,204 feet away on a road leading into the quarry. This one's hard. On September 17, 2019, in West Virginia, a little boy was killed in his bed by fly rocks smashing through his bedroom window. There are too many more examples and impacts. I'm so thankful for this hearing, for all who came here and are writing letters to the DEQ within the next 10 days because they care about North Carolina, its people, wildlife, air, and water. I don't want anyone to be collateral damage due to an accident because of someone's incorrect prediction, mistake, or idea of minimum risk. We are hoping our government will protect us with zero risk from the quarry. We are counting on the state to consider all concerns, complaints, problems, violations, etc. for this company or other quarries in similar situations. Is it worth the risk? Sorry.
Next speaker, James Painter.
Thank you for the opportunity. Sorry to be so slow. I'm James Painter, I live at 1300 Painter Road, Prospect Hill. I was born in 1922 and lived in the community all my life except the time I served in the Navy in World War II. I was a crop and cattle farmer until I retired. I have been a member of Farm Bureau for about 60 years. In the 1930s, I helped my dad and others. He hired to build 2 miles, which is now the Ren Road, including the bridge to connect to dead-end roads. The northern end began at Ridgeville Road and ended at the Wren House. The southern end ended near the Lunsford home. We originally built the road to my dad's farm, but the highway department would not agree to maintain it unless it connected the 2 roads. At that time, tree cutting was done using crosscut saws and axes. The grading was done by the mule and tractor drawn equipment. It took more than 3 years for us to connect the 2 roads and get it up to date, which included about 2 miles. Farming was our #1 project and was always important farming is always important to me when I was growing up. Most farmers got their milk from a cow, they milk, got eggs from their chickens, and their hogs got meat, some made molasses, and some had bees for honey. The farms are now much larger than they were, but the community still depends on tobacco and cattle and chickens to provide livelihood for families. But many young residents have the interest in raising their own food, so they know how it was raised and where it comes from. I am concerned about the impacts of the quarry, including how dust and water shortage or contamination will displace some of these farms, and that will have the negative impact on livestock and poultry, and pollinator and honeybees. My property is about 150 yards from the existing Sunrock site near Wren Road and Highway 49. I had heard rumors that the site was to be used only temporary for mixing asphalt for the state highway project, but that was not true. The site is visible along Wren Road and has been an eyesore since they stripped topsoil and moved old equipment there. More recently, they built a berm and planted small trees, shrubs on the site along the highway. If this site is an example of Sunrock's respect for the community, it's not about with us. The creek on my property, which is close to the site, the Sunrock site, feeds into the South Halco Creek. If there is a runoff on the backside of that property, it will likely reach the creek on my property, which feeds into the Sugar Tree Creek. A quarry will make it more likely that the site that Sunrock now owns will discharge into the creek, which crosses my property. For that and other reasons, I do not believe the quarry is good for our county. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Painter, and for your service also. Mr. Bruce Pleasant.
I'm Bruce Pleasant, and I reside at 1268 Painter Road, Prospect Hill. I am the lay leader of Bethel United Methodist Church, which is directly across from the proposed Sunrock Quarry on Ridgeville Road. Our church was established in 1874. I'm deeply worried that if the application for a mining permit is approved, our church will no longer be a place of peaceful worship and fellowship. I fear that funerals will be disrupted with the sound of blasting and earth vibrations from the mining activities. We have several faithful elderly members of our congregation, and 2 of them must carry portable oxygen with them to church. The silica dust, a known carcinogen from the mining operations, will undoubtedly make breathing especially difficult for those who already have breathing issues. I fear that some of our elderly members will be unable to attend services at Bethel due to the poor air quality around the quarry site if the quarry becomes our neighbor. I'm also afraid of what effect the quarry's pumping of millions of gallons of water per day will have on our church's well water supply. The history of Carolina Sunrock tells us that they cannot be trusted to be transparent and do what they promise, as evidenced by their history with other quarry operations, most recently the Woodsdale Quarry in northern Person County. Their historical lack of transparency and unwillingness to answer questions publicly has left mistrust in the community. Prospect Hill has always been an agricultural community. The proposed traffic route will require trucks to turn left on the Ridgeville Road and make another left turn on the Highway 86. It is proposed that there will be 75 round trips made by 70,000-pound tandem axle trucks on a narrow secondary road. While it is a given that the quarry would result in increased road traffic and wear to the roads, Ridgeville Road has a number of farms between Wren Road and Highway 86. These trucks, some of the heaviest on the roads, will be sharing road with slow-moving farm equipment, and that would be a public safety hazard. There are no economic benefits that justify the impacts to personal health or safety of the community, certainly not 15 jobs. The cumulative impacts of this proposal will be both long-term and permanent. If mining operations are permitted at the proposed site and my fears are realized, where does our church go to get our water supply back? Where do we turn to get clean air that our members with respiratory illnesses need to breathe? And who would we need to see to be able to have funeral services without anticipating loud explosions, smelling the odor of hot asphalt, feeling the vibrations of the building's foundation, and hearing the sounds of rattling window panes? These are some of the fears that I have, but perhaps my biggest fear is that if the permit application is approved, we will forever lose a quality of life our members, the oldest of whom just spoke, have known their whole life, and then it will be too late to reverse the damage caused by the quarry. Thank you.
Next would be Earl Rand.
Earl Rand, 4927 Egypt Road, Prospect Hill, North Carolina. I come before you today with environmental and concerns about our wells. Back in January, I came before our Board of Commissioners. January 2019, I come before our Board of Commissioners regarding a rock quarry. I stated to the board that there are test borings are being drilled on the site, and the test borings were being left open. On January the 2nd, I contacted Daniel Fox, environmental engineer with the Public Water Section of North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, about this concern and how could it affect our wells with them being left open. He emailed me back January the 2nd to contact the Caswell County Health Department. On January the 2nd, I emailed Donnie Powell, Caswell County Health Department, and I said I have a question, concerns I hope you can help me with. Out on Wren Road in Prospect Hill, there's been a lot of drilling. This drilling was done in the later part of 2018. And I told him some of the sites were being left open. I viewed them. January the 7th, I emailed Donnie Powell again because I had not heard back from him. I said, Donnie, did you get a chance to view these test well sites on Wren Road? January the 8th, Mr. Powell emailed me back. I have made a visit to the site and continue to gather information about the site. I do think they're planning something, but I'm still gathering information. We'll be in touch. January the 9th, email from Donnie Powell, Health Department. The activity of drilling, boring holes is exempt from well drilling rules in North Carolina. He said, I was told yesterday by a representative at the NC on-site water protection section, we have no regulatory authority in this case. Then he stated, he talked to a representative for Sunrock, who did assure me that it was their practice to properly abandon all test borings with grout, and that was done to each site. That being said, this is Mr. Powell, that being said, I cannot personally verify that has been done because fortunately, he said, since I have no regulatory authority. Now, moving to February the 12th, Donnie Powell emailed me and asked me were they still open boring. I emailed back, yes. Now we're moving to September the 11th. Sunrock held a meeting at the Prospect Hill Fire Department. I voiced my concerns again about the open boring sites. Sunrock agreed to meet me at the site on September the 16th to view the open borings. I showed them two. We drove the truck right down the farm road. Didn't even have to get out. There they were. There are two representatives got out of their truck with shovels and used the dirt that was bored from the holes to fill the holes. No grout. I've been checking these open holes since around November 2018. And almost a year later, two of those holes got filled with dirt from around this site. So I asked you, I'm an old country boy. I reached out to the state. I reached out to the health department. How can I be assured that the right thing is going to be done? I contacted everyone that I know, and I used the contact that the state gave me. I thank you.
Dale Kemper.
I too want to thank you for holding this hearing and listening to us. My name is Dale Kemper. I own property just north of the proposed site, adjacent to it, butts up against it. And in the papers I handed out, I give you a plot plan of the Beverly Falls development area. I own two lots on that, lot 1 and lot 2, which I think I've pointed out on that. I have two homes on that lot now, on that property. One of them was there when we moved here 3 years ago. It's a 3-story because I count the basement as a full story in this case. 6 bedrooms, 2 of them are in the basement, 3.5 baths and so forth. Brick home. It's serviced by a well number 14, which is the one closest to this strip mining they're doing. The other home is serviced by well number 12 in that same map of theirs, and was built just 2 years ago, or a year ago I moved into it, a year and a half ago I moved into it. The wells are both drilled to a depth of approximately 400 feet above medium sea level. That's where they draw their water from. And looking at the application, that's where most of the wells around there are drilled to. Sunrock says they're going to 70 feet above sea level. So I'm quite concerned that when they bust into that well, that wall of granite, and start undermining the side down and gravel out of it, we're going to have quite a mess with it, and the loss of water. Illustrating, consider that was your granite block that's holding all this water, tons and tons of water. A lot of us sip water out the top of this through our wells like a straw. When Sunrock blasts the side off of that to get gravel, it's not going to hold water, guys. They're going to get drowned in water a lot more than what they're anticipating. My well itself, when drilled just a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, was flowing at 4 gallons a minute. Beg your pardon, 40 gallons a minute. And we are now drawing 10 gallons a minute out of it, because that's by desire, not to overpump it. So that's my first main concern. Second main concern is with damage to the brick home. If you'll look at a newscast that put out by CBS, January of 2018, a woman there had her brick home over in Person County destroyed or damaged by the blast. She called for Sunrock to do something with it. Sunrock arrived. It's not our fault. That's their first response. A court finally turned them around and decided something in some ways they were at fault. We really don't want to go to court to settle everything over in the county. I got a disclosure if I'm going to read it. The third thing is destroying roads. I realize they have as much right to drive on the public roads as anyone else does. But they're going to be driving 18-ton multi-axle trucks on there. And when you turn a multi-axle truck on blacktop, you take the blacktop off. It's just like screwing it down with hard rubber. And we're going to get a lot of damage at every one of those turns. Nice thing about it, as far as Sunrock's concerned, they're a major contractor to rebuild roads. They do multi-billion-dollar contracts with counties and state. Next is wildlife, and this, of course, is very close to me. As you look on that plot plan that I gave you, we have a conservation area marked off around the creek that runs across the base of my property. That agreement was reached 30 years ago and has been honored for those 30 years and has another 10 years to go on before it's due for renewal. It specifically prohibits any activity along that creek within 50 feet of it that would cause damage to wildlife. Specifically, beaver is called out, but it does talk about all wildlife. You can start imagining what's going to happen when they pump 3 million gallons out of their quarry. They'll pump it into the closest creek. That's the closest creek to their settlement ponds. That's the ones they're going to pump most of the water into. The next item I want to point out, and I think these first items, by the way, are touched on by your rules 2, 4, and again 2, which you'll see on the handout I gave you. I've referenced these comments to those rules. The last problem I'm really worried about is destroying fresh water.
Mr.
You've heard
Kemper,
about it already, and so it's getting,
5 minutes expired.
I'm sorry?
5 minutes expired.
Yeah, I'll go 5 minutes.
Yes.
We'll quit. You need another copy?
We have, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next will be Mark Zimmerman.
Ooh, all right. It's as dangerous in here as it will be next to that quarry. All right, so my name is Mark Zimmerman, and I live at 732 Solomon Road, just a couple miles north of the quarry location. And I'm going to comment on surface water relevant to your criteria 2 and 3. When I read in Sunrock's application that, quote, the discharge of stormwater and processed water is anticipated into waters of the state, and that a NPDES NCGO2 application will be submitted at a later date, I was going to ask you, how could you issue a permit for this mine before reviewing that application? Then I realized that simply the need for the application should be disqualifying in and of itself. NCDEQ has classified this area surrounding South Hyco Creek as a Class WS2 HQW waters. Your water supply watershed protection fact sheet clearly states that, quote, neither any new domestic nor industrial treated wastewater discharge is permitted in this classification, unquote. Sunrock is planning to do both. Its admission that they will be discharging wastewater should be dispositive. That alone gives you ground to deny the permit. But there are other water concerns, in addition to the water that will be coming in from the mine. There are 3 tributaries forming the headwaters of Roxborough Lake that transverse the quarry property. According to Sunrock's maps, one unnamed tributary originates on the property site, and that means a spring generates the stream. Springs are fed by the underground aquifer. What impact will the quarry drawing down the water table have on this spring? What impact will the blasting have on the geology that forms the spring? There is no testing that can be done for these scenarios. Studies, and I've included citations with my written remarks, have shown that quarry operations have diverted springs into the pit and caused nearby springs to run dry by lowering the groundwater supply. If this spring runs dry, we will lose a water source for Roxborough Lake. We will also lose all the aquatic life in the stream. Worst case scenario is what happened in a Georgia quarry, which experienced what they called a quote-unquote blowout that diverted a large stream right into the pit, rapidly filling it. Suffice it to say that the Sunrock proposed quarry is too close to too many important feeder streams to run these risks. Sunrock's quarry couldn't have been more poorly sited. It's in an area that arguably should be receiving heightened protections due to its watershed. Instead, this quarry exposes it to substantial new risk. When Sunrock's land agent presented this parcel for a quarry, this self-proclaimed environmentally responsible company should have said, find another site. But they didn't. And so now it's up to you. Please tell Sunrock to find another site. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Hester.
My name is Susan Hester. I live at 610 Newton Pleasant Loop Road. I'm here with my brother Calvin and my sister Bess. Our family owns about 70 acres that is immediately to the east of the proposed quarry site. It's a beautiful wooded area with a few fields. We rent it for farming and for hunting. And I will be brief. I'm very concerned, we're very concerned about the potential to damage the groundwater, the quantity and the quality of it. Through the center of this property, South Hyco Creek runs, and we're also very concerned about the potential for pollution of the creek and endangering the quality of water at Roxborough Lake and the damage that it can do to us, to our neighbors and friends who live on Roxborough Lake, and to our neighbors and friends who live in the city of Roxborough and drink the water that comes from Roxborough Lake.
Mr. Dumpor and the committee. I'm Randolph Hester. I farm at 752 Tombos Road. Our farm is partly in Person County and partly in Caswell County. We've been farming here since before the revolution. I'm a landscape architect and an environmental planner. I first was involved in the mining in North Carolina down your way when Texas Gulf Sulfur began the phosphate mining. As an environmental planner, I taught at NC State. I was on the Raleigh City Council. I hope you'll forgive me for that. But now I'm back farming, and I've talked to almost all the farmers on the Person County, Caswell line on the Person County side. Only one was not concerned. And most of their concerns relate to what's going to happen to the wells, the springs, that serve their farm operations and are essential to our livelihood. So, at the suggestion of the farmers, I contacted a former colleague at the University of California, Berkeley, who's a geomorphologist. Of course, I always have to ask him exactly what does that mean. He's a world-renowned hydrologist, Dr. Matt Kondoff, and so I reviewed with him what I knew, and then I sent him the environmental information. And his advice after a somewhat superficial review was, you gotta get more facts before you can either deny or approve this permit. You gotta get the more information on what the impacts on groundwater will be. Now he's telling me this, and he said the problem is that the drawdown is likely to propagate. Now, you know what that means, but I thought rabbits propagated. I didn't know that we were likely to have this problem in water. And he said, well, the propagation means that the cone of depression is going to multiply. It's going to increase. And I said, well, does that mean that our water a mile away or 2 miles away or all the way up to the Hester store is going to be affected 3 miles away? And he said, you cannot tell on the basis of the environmental information that Sunrock has produced to this date. So my request is that you get that information Dr. Kondoff will provide me a list of the questions he thinks have to be answered, but they're probably the questions you already know have to be answered. Thank you.
Next is Jennifer Nguyen.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to meet with you guys tonight. My name is Jennifer Nguyen. I'm a registered nurse at one of the local trauma centers. I'm also a graduate student in the Doctor of Nursing Practice program. I'm here today to talk to you about the health risk related to this quarry going into our quaint, historical, and agricultural community of Prospect Hill, which lies in the southeastern corner of Caswell County. Prospect Hill is a community that has a very bright economical development future due to the impending spillover from the neighboring counties. A recent local example is the permit request of about the 680 acres by Sunrock for the purposing of quarrying and crushing limestone and other materials found along Ridgeville and Wren Road. While economic growth is needed and expected in this part of the region, limestone quarrying and asphalt manufacturing are well-documented sources of airborne pollution called particulate matter. The effects of the pollution pose a significant risk to the residents of Prospect Hill, as well as the entire county of Caswell. The World Health Organization and the Environmental Protection Agency classify particulate matter as pollution because exposure is associated with a wide range of serious negative health effects. Particulate matter is generally comprised of microscopic particles made of materials such as silica and other minerals from rock crushing, and hydrocarbon and soot from diesel exhaust of industrial equipment and the trucks that are utilized heavily during rock crushing and quarrying. Particulate matter is characterized in size ranges. The particulate matter that poses minimal risk are those that are just so small that are invisible to the naked eye and are referred to as particulate matter 2.5 and particulate matter 10. The number refers to the particle size in terms of micrometers, which cannot be seen by the naked eye. Both can travel by air and have been well documented that particulate matter 10 can travel up to 30 miles. Particulate matter 2.5, the most dangerous, can travel hundreds of miles. It is impossible for Sunrock to contain their entire quarry dust. Now, both particulate matter 10 and particulate matter 2.5 are capable of penetrating the respiratory system through inhalation. There's a plethora of documented information regarding health-related effects of the inhaled particulate matter. Health effects occur both short-term, meaning hours and days, as well as long-term exposure, meaning months and years. Short-term exposure is coughing, sneezing, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and eye irritation. Long-term effects can result in reduced lung function, lung diseases such as asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, silicosis, and lung cancer. Other health risks associated with long-term exposure to particulate matter are cardiovascular diseases, strokes, risk of allergies and anaphylactic shock, increased autoimmune diseases. Studies have also shown strong relationships between these particles and leukemia, as well as pregnancy complications, to include low birth weight, intrauterine growth retardation, cardiac birth defects. Particulate matter pollution is directly related to the increase in absences of school and work, as well as increased visits to emergency departments, doctor's offices, and hospitalizations. Studies have documented a noteworthy correlation between particulate matter exposure and mortality. The patients most at risk, patients with pre-existing respiratory conditions. You've already heard today that we have residents in the county who wear oxygen. Bringing this quarry in will greatly shorten their life, as well as, more importantly, the children of Caswell County. And if you look around, if you are a child, please stand up. Please. I know you guys have been wanting to. Most of these children go to South Elementary School, which is located 4.4 miles
Your
from
time
the
is up,
center.
ma'am.
Thank you. The center of this quarry is located 4.4 miles from South Elementary School. Would you want your children going there, where this particulate dust blows around daily, gathers on playground equipment? There's also another park located in which they said that there was not one, called Panther Branch Creek, which is a park that is located
Thank you.
about 3 miles.
Thank you, ma'am.
Furthermore,
There's more people waiting.
that's great. Furthermore, I would like to conclude with the fact that Prospect Hill is 22 miles from Duke, okay? 29 miles from UNC Chapel Hill, 19 miles from UNC Hillsborough, and 16 miles from the county's only EMS station.
Thank you very
Are you
much.
guys ready to bring this in for the health effects for everyone here? I ask you to deny the permit.
Thank you. Mark Wynn.
Sign me up. So my name's Mark Ryan Wynn. I reside at 15354 North Carolina Highway 86 South, Prospect Hill, North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, neighbors, well, I was in the Marine Corps for 22 and a half years. I settled in Prospect Hill because it's Prospect Hill, North Carolina, and we're out here in the middle of nowhere, which is how we like it. And I'm not anti-quarry, but I am anti-Caswell Quarry, because we don't really need the quarry in Caswell County. There's no such thing. I spent my last 9 months in Fallujah when I was winning action 2007 with EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. There is no such thing as a controlled blast. There's a controlled detonation. Time, date, but you cannot control a blast. It's absolutely unpredictable. You can do the best you can to negate the circumstances, but there's absolutely nothing that you can do to say that, yeah, it's a controlled blast, because it's not. Like my wife previously stated right for me, it's right up the street from the school from our kids. We moved here because of that. We moved here because of our neighbors. We moved here because of our family. And we like it that way. We like a small town and small neighbors, and all the things that you guys are listening to today, you can read just as well as I can. But on a personal note, would you want that in your backyard? Would you feel comfortable with Sunrock's track record saying, yeah, let's do that, and then put it in your backyard? I would challenge you with your heart and with your faith, and I would say that take a hard look at what you're looking at with factual, quantifiable numbers, and make a competent decision as our elected officials, please. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next is William Sharp. Thank you, sir.
My name is William Sharp. I've worked in the on and off highway heavy-duty engine and transmission field for the last 43 years. I started as a technician, shop foreman, spent some time in sales, then moved into Vice President of Operation and Training. Also a member of Nashville Auto Diesel Hall of Fame. After 43 years of working in this field, I've learned one thing: trucks and equipment leak fluid. Most components on trucks and equipment have vents that release pressure and fluid to the atmosphere. 90% of the trucks and equipment that we work on have leaks. 50% continue to leak even after they leave our shop because warranty or customers won't pay to correct these issues. These fluids, of course, are engine oil, gear oil, antifreeze, hydraulic, power steering, transmission fluids. These fluids contain wear metals, and of course, when wear metals are introduced, they become hazardous and have to be disposed of correctly. I don't think you want these in your drinking water. Leaks are so common in the industry that warranty managers have to do to identify what's a leak and what's a seep. Sometimes pictures and videos are required before a warranty claim can be paid. Skilled technicians and truck drivers shortage remains the biggest problem in this industry today. Maintenance technicians, like the ones taking care of the equipment in the quarry, receive little to no training on their equipment. They can't attend classes because they are not a distributor or a dealer. They rely on someone else to take care of major issues. Electronic computer control systems for engines and transmissions were introduced in the 80s. Technicians, drivers, managers rely on the electronics to warn them about problems, which works fine if you're in the middle of nowhere, but it doesn't work when you're located upstream from Lake Roxborough. The lake is used, of course, for the drinking water. An example of some of the sensors would be like a coolant level sensor. They're located below the normal operating level. You have to leak out several gallons of antifreeze before it's ever sensed. Even then, it's up to the driver to take action about the code or light. If the truck will roll or move, they usually continue their shift, still leaking antifreeze. Hundreds of trucks will be coming on site daily to pick up product, and we'll have more of the same leaks and poor maintenance. These are going to be older trucks that don't meet the latest emission standards. There's no emission testing for on and off highway diesel engines. These trucks picking product up will be traveling on narrow, winding, two-lane highways. Some of the surveys that we've done in our company have come in with as high as 30% of the trucks traveling the highways have anti-lock brake system lights on. This puts farmers on tractors and school buses picking up children at a high risk. Imagine a dump truck loaded with 80,000 pounds traveling 55 miles per hour and they can't stop. Last year, a logging truck ran through a school classroom at Lamb's Chapel in Hall River. Brakes failed. Quarry blasting will crack the brick, the mortar joints, and foundations. My parents' home was damaged from a runway expansion in Burlington. Quarry workers may be protected from silica and dust. I'm sure MSHA and OSHA will make sure that they're protected anytime they're outside the trucks. But what about children at play and the farm workers? Some of the best fishing and abundant wildlife surround the proposed site. Please don't allow the community and the environment to be destroyed. Thank you.
Boyd Pearson.
Christopher Glenn Wordeman. The creek that they all are talking about is the end of my property. Mike, excuse me, sorry. So they want to put this plant completely across the street from my house. Me and my wife have worked very hard as a 30-year-old to have what we have, and everybody else here has too. We'd rather not see it ruined. We'd rather not see problems such as fly rock. My house is directly 1,000 feet away from their proposed blast site. So that means that they can blow stuff up and it land in my house without a problem. Air particulates, water quality. I'd rather not have my daughter and her friends from this community right here in a creek that's contaminated with, like my man said, transmission fluid, power fluid, antifreeze, whatever, it doesn't matter. Nobody here wants this quarry here, and it's only gonna do damage. Thank you.
All right, Amy Pearson.
My name's Amy Pearson. I live at 720 Solomon Road in Leesburg, North Carolina. I'm a lifelong North Carolina resident, and I appreciate you all letting us be here today. I don't have much to say except for one of the things I was impressed with at the first meeting when we visited with Sunrock and we were introduced to them in September was they were good neighbors. They were very adamant that that was a major goal of theirs, was to be a good neighbor. And my husband and I were kind of impressed. They had a lot of displays. They had probably 15 experts there, and they were ready to tell us all about their quarry. Well, a gentleman stood up and he said, "They're not good neighbors, and I'll tell you why." And so we looked at him, and he said, "They had an abandoned quarry near my home," and I think one of the gentlemen spoke to that tonight. And they left it, and we drove down to look at it, and it is disgraceful. It's something that I don't think any person in this room or any of you would really feel good about having as your neighbor, literally across from your home. I also would suggest that the folks in Vance County probably don't think Sunrock is a very good neighbor. I was recently given some information and read about a 2010 violation that they had. Now, I know that's a while back, but their violation, there were several, and some of them I didn't understand because I'm not a geologist or I don't know as much about the environment. But one was definitely, I understood, was with issues with sediment release into the waterways in the Kittrell Quarry. And I also saw further that the Division of Energy, Mining, and Land Resources, I think you said Dimler, had, who oversees mines, that for a 5-year period, they oversee 760 mines, and over a 5-year period only gave out 12 violations. And Sunrock in that one episode, I think, had 5. I don't have written statements for you today, but I will get those for you. I was so concerned about some of the issues with the quarry, I contacted one of the representatives from Sunrock, and I think it was Scott Martino, but I don't want to put that in the record because I could be wrong, but we had a very good conversation. I asked him several questions, and one was my concern about an accident, or oops, or what Mr. Zimmerman said was a blowout. I had not seen it called that. We all know very reputable companies in our country have had those mistakes. Duke Energy's one, which is a fine company. DuPont, very, very reputable companies. They have accidents, and then what happens? Oops, and then there's a lot of consequences. Well, in our county of Caswell County, I think we're a very vulnerable population because we depend on our well water, and if we did have an accident, I asked Mr. Martino, "What would you do?" And his quote was to me was, "I will change our operations." Well, I'd like to submit to you that once that blast happens, there is no changing that operation, and it seems like it would be a little too late. So as Caswell County is the proposed site for a quarry, I think it's so vulnerable in regards to our water supply. We cannot afford an accident, and this is not the place for the quarry. And I think I would refer this to your criteria number 2. And so as I looked at your website, your goal is to protect our environment and our natural resources, protect fish, wildlife, and wilderness areas, and make sure our drinking water is safe. So thank you for considering all these comments and our concerns about this quarry coming to Caswell County. Thank you.
Robert Skip Anderson.
Thank you. I'm Skip Anderson. My wife Karen and I live on Wilson Road in Hurdle Mills in Caswell County. I'm addressing permit denials number 4 and 6 in a quality of life point of view. Having a home in Caswell County currently means having a good place to live with clean water in your well, nearby waterways, with pleasant country roads, nice neighbors, and lots of wildlife in the area. It is pleasant to drive through, bicycle around, or simply go for a walk. Our towns are pleasant and walkable. We are blessed with many natural abundances, and we enjoy them when we live here. Yanceyville is a town with a lot of great history and the potential for growth, economically with new businesses and with more people moving here. We've seen other towns of similar size and history nearby grow with varying degrees of success. So what will we do? We could allow any commercial enterprise to open on the roads into town and call that strip development economic growth. We could build a prison or a jail in town and note the new jobs that this may bring to our residents. We could allow a rock quarry to come in and mine the very bedrock of our community and call it progress. Or we could join together and resist these easiest and quickest means of bringing more money into our community. They have a very real potential of changing the very things that make us attractive to new residents. Is it worth gaining tax money for and maybe 25 or 30 jobs that may not even go to our current residents? Isn't this the lowest common denominator of selling what we have in Caswell County? Come and blast our rock and haul it away, deliver it in huge trucks that lumber along our country roads, add chemicals to our land and water. This is a good example, in my opinion, of selling out, allowing an outside company to come in, dig large holes in our county, and take our natural resources. We'll be left with a mess, wondering where the payback, along with our clean water and pleasant country roads, went. By then, it will be too late. Let's hold out for higher quality development. That growth may take longer, but it will retain what makes us special and not sell out to the first taker who wants our minerals at the lowest cost. Make no mistake, the quarry is designed to mine rock at the lowest cost. My wife and I grew up with a rock quarry in our small town, and it is now just a big hole in the ground where rock falls, make it an unsafe place to visit. Is that what we want? Please tell our representatives they'll have to find better means to grow. Thank you.
Sharon Williams.
My name is Sharon Williams. My husband Ed and I live at 396 John Russell Road in Prospect Hill. Caswell County has been our home for the last 18 years. Nothing you hear tonight should surprise you. It should impress you. County residents have spent countless hours and even our own money researching the serious and damaging environmental risks related to public health, air, and water quality. Local residents who all depend upon wells for our water supply are at risk. Local residents are at risk for air pollution. Local residents are at risk for damage to the foundations of our homes. It's clear that the residents of Caswell County are assuming all the risks, while Sunrock reaps all the rewards. You have the financial and technological resources at your disposal to protect our environment. Your final decision on the application should consider all these risks to the environment. In a county with no zoning, our commissioners' hands are tied. You have the legislative authority and the responsibility to protect environmental quality in Caswell County. It's not too late. Thank you.
Can somebody who lives at 9812 Harrison Road I'm sorry I couldn't read. What is the last name? Okay. Oh, okay. I would never have guessed.
I got A's and P's. That was a long time ago. Good evening. My name is Ken Dawson. My family and I farm vegetables, small fruits, herbs, and cut flowers on Allison Road, about a quarter mile south of the Caswell County line, and about 2.5 miles from the proposed quarry site. Our livelihood depends on dependable, clean water from our wells. I've spoken with our neighbor, Ronnie Lunsford, who grows strawberries and other crops up on Ridgeville Road, practically in sight of the quarry. And we share some of the similar concerns, and so I speak on behalf not only of my family, but of the Lunsford family, and on behalf of numerous other farmers in the area who are dependent on well water for some part of their crop and livestock production. My concerns about this proposed project have to do with the potential impact on both the quantity and the quality of the groundwater that everybody in this neighborhood depends on for both personal and agricultural use, and also about the health impacts of the known toxic pollution from the proposed asphalt plant. The amount of water that would be removed from the underground groundwater is a serious concern. Obviously, numerous people have mentioned that. I have read the entirety of the hydrogeological study report done for Sunrock, and according to this report, in pump tests at the 2 300-foot deep wells, pumping was terminated before the expected 48 hours because water levels in all 6 of the observation wells had fallen so far and so fast that they could not continue the test. According to this report, Sunrock would expect by the time the quarry is 500 feet deep to be pumping 2,000 gallons of groundwater per minute in order to keep the quarry from flooding. Now, to put that in perspective, that works out to about 3 million gallons a day and over 1 billion gallons of water a year pumped out of the aquifer that we all depend on. And yet, this report concludes that wells beyond a 1,300-foot radius would not be adversely affected. According to a web posting by the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources, now called the DEQ, in the Piedmont and Blue Ridge provinces of North Carolina, 2 major aquifer systems exist, and they usually interact with each other. Now, the way I interpret that statement, and that is a direct quote, is that all the cracks in the underlying bedrock that hold the water that supplies our wells are interconnected all the way from the Piedmont to the mountains in order for those 2 aquifers to interact. So it is inconceivable to me that pumping 2,000 gallons a minute of water out of the quarry would not affect wells beyond a 1,300-foot radius, as is stated in this report. That argument simply doesn't hold water. Furthermore, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, and again I quote, connection of bedrock fractures with the overlying regolith is assumed in most hydrogeologic settings. High pumping rates can induce large vertical gradients between the bedrock and the overlying regolith and thus accelerate rates of contaminant moving. In plain English, what that means is the faster you pump large volumes of water out of the aquifer below, the faster the surface water is drawn down into the aquifer, and therefore any surface contamination gets pulled down with it. So, with the type of quantity of water that they're talking about pumping out, we will increase the likelihood not only that the quantity of water available in our wells will decline, but they are much more likely to be contaminated by surface water as well. Nowhere in the permit application is there any mention of what Sunrock would do in the event that our water supply is not protected. There is no guarantee in this hydrogeologic study report that our wells and our water supply would not be adversely affected. To me, this seems to be ample reason to deny this permit under Article 2 of the denial criteria. Briefly, my other primary concern about this proposed project has to do with the toxic emissions from the proposed asphalt plant. Last year, I survived a bout of cancer, and I really don't care to go down that road again. According to the DEQ's website, there are 97 known toxic air pollutants emitted from asphalt plants, many of which are known cancer-causing agents. I do not wish to see my 2 young grandchildren who live in the neighborhood exposed to this kind of toxic air, nor anyone else in the community. Given the fickle nature of the wind, everybody for miles around is at risk of breathing these toxins. We do not deserve this. For the health and well-being of our community, we request that you deny this permit application. And in closing, I would like to pose a question to those of you who work for the state of North Carolina and therefore work for us. If this proposed project was to be sited in your neighborhood, knowing what you know about the potential risk to health, to water supply, to the well-being of community, would you permit this application in your backyard? Thank you.
Representative Greg Mayer.
Good evening. I'm Representative Greg Meyer, represent Caswell County in the North Carolina House of Representatives. Senator Mike Woodard is also here, who represents Person County and Durham County. Both Senator Woodard and I have been in communication with the Department of Environmental Quality and Department of Transportation about this permitting. And we have also received copious communications from all of you who are in the room. Thank you for communicating with us. As you know from Civics 101, a legislative body does not have the power to approve or stop a process like this. That authority rests with the executive branch. But what we do have a responsibility for is to represent the people who are impacted by anything that happens in our communities. And we do understand that although the Department of Environmental Quality, the EPA, the DOT, others have to look at guidelines and regulations, our job is to listen to you about the way a decision like this would impact your home and your family, your health, your community. And we will raise as much attention as we can to expect all of the regulatory bodies to act in a way that requires the utmost compliance with the law, including the denial of permits where there is no way to ensure public safety. I do want to illustrate one reason for the benefit of our DEQ officials who are here tonight so graciously, why this is so important, which is many of you may be wondering, why is this happening in Caswell County right now? And maybe you heard that this is also happening in Alamance County. Maybe you heard that this is also happening in Wake County. And why is this happening in all these places around North Carolina right now? And I don't know for sure, but I think that the reason why this is why we're seeing mines and quarries being permitted or applied for permits right now is because of a 2017 law that was passed. Senator Woodard and myself voted against that law, and Governor Cooper vetoed that law, but the veto was overridden by the legislature. And the law changed the permitting for mines and quarries from having to go through a renewal of permitting every 10 years to being able to establish a permanent permit for the life of the project. In this case, the application asked for a 50-year life. Given that there's not going to be a repeated review of permitting every 10 years, then I do believe that it is incumbent upon the state to take the utmost care to make sure that the full review of all permitting requirements has been made up front. Because once we make this decision, we won't be able to go back. Senator Woodard and I will be meeting with the Department of Environmental Quality and others in coming weeks. We certainly will carry forward to them the stories that we've heard from you tonight. Thank you.
Rachel Hibbard.
Thank you. I'll be brief. My name is Rachel Hibbard. I live on Wade Loop, just a few miles from the proposed quarry site. I just want to echo the concerns of my neighbors about the effect of the quarry on our surface and groundwater. If the groundwater and surface water is contaminated, I can go to the store and buy bottled water to drink. But the coyote and deer and red foxes and possums and raccoons and lizards and snakes and fish that live on my property cannot do that. Thank you.
Roger Tippard.
Thank you for coming to listen to us tonight. My name is Roger Tigard. I live at 472 Carver Road with my wife Karen, and I would like to talk about Sun Rock's erosion and settlement control plan. At the meeting at the fire department, they specified that this was for a 25-year storm event. The speaker was asked how much rain is that, and they said 10 inches. They didn't specify how long a period of time that 10 inches would take to accumulate. But Hurricane Jerry in 1989 dropped 15 plus inches of rain on Caswell County. And then coincidentally, Tropical Storm Jerry in 1995 dropped between 9 and 13 inches of rain in Prospect Hill in a matter of 8 hours. Now, if we do the math, that's 2 of those storms in 6 years, the last one being 24 years away, so we're due for another one anytime now. And we all remember Hurricanes Matthew, Florence, and Michael that came perilously close to here that were they 100-year storms? Were they 500-year storms? I don't believe that this will control the sediment, which will then run into Roxborough Lake. Additionally, my well has high-quality water. When I had it tested, the tech at the state health department wrote comments about how cities would kill for this water, and that if he could manufacture drinking water, this would be it. A couple of years ago, I had a new sleeve put in that well, which is probably 40 years old, 120 feet deep, and they put a camera down in there, and it looked like a river. And the guys said, I've never seen anything like this before. And that river was traveling west to east. Due east of my house is the quarry site. If they hit that vein, they will have a blowout, and we could have no water. Thank you.
Jeff Kirby.
Hello, my name is Jeff Kirby. I live at 117 Kirby McNair Porter Road, Prospect Hill. I was born on Ridgeville Road. My dad was born on Ridgeville Road. My grandfather, he was raised in Prospect Hill. I mean, he raised his family in Prospect Hill. We grew up respecting someone who spoke earlier. When he said something in the community, everybody listened. That was Mr. James Payne. This evening I'm going to discuss criteria number 5, that the operation will have a significant adverse effect on the purposes of public-owned park, forest, or recreation area. When Sunrock held its community meeting in September, the staff was asked when Sunrock held its community meeting in September, the staff was asked why Sunrock hadn't addressed this criteria since the proposed parcel for sitting the quarry was so close to Roxborough Lake, which is a public-owned lake with recreational facilities. Tracy Davis, who was speaking on behalf of Sunrock as one of their consultants, stated, "I don't believe there's any recreational areas nearby." Well, that's not the case. As I stated, Roxborough Lake, both water and a buffer around it, is owned by the city of Roxborough. Caswell County GIS clearly shows that the lake is the owner of the city of Roxborough. The lake's owner is the city of Roxborough. Furthermore, the ownership of the south portion of the main lake is 828 feet from the northeast corner of the Sunrock parcel. The rule says no closer than 5 miles, if I understood that correct. It's a very easy thing to verify on GIS. That Sunrock did not know the proximity of this lake is troubling to me. One has to wonder how thorough their investigative work has been. The lake offers sailing, canoeing, boating, fishing, swimming to residents of Roxborough and Roxborough permit holders. That's about as recreation as you get. Roxborough Lake is classified by North Carolina DEQ as a WS2B freshwater lake. Class B is defined by NCDEQ as waters used for primary recreation, including swimming. The lake is a publicly owned recreational area. Sunrock has neglected to provide studies that the quarry's operation will have a significant adverse effect on its use. Every speaker here tonight has and will provide comments on the potential negative impacts of the quarry on the lake that are relevant to this criteria as well. The recreational users of this lake depend on the maintenance of the highest quality water conditions. If the water quality goes down, the first thing they're going to do is cut out recreation, and then they'll hope, that the quarry is not going to continue to contaminate it, which that's going to be where it's coming from. For that reason, we ask you deny Sunrock's permit for the operation of a quarry at this location. Again, I heard somebody say, if a map was on the wall and somebody closed their eyes and threw a dart, they could not have picked a worse spot to put this quarry. Thank you. I would like to redo this. I got little marks all over it, and I will get it to you.
All right.
Thank you,
sir. Cindy Kirby.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Kirby. I'm at 117 Kirby McNair Porter Road in Prospect Hill. I'll be speaking to you tonight on criteria number 2, is the environment and the animals and things. I've spent a lot of time since the quarry proposal researching this little animal, a mussel called the James spiny mussel. He's a mollusk which is listed in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services as an endangered species. He was listed back in 1988. On their website for the United States Wildlife and Fish, they still have this mussel listed as endangered. He is still shown to be on their map in Sugar Tree Creek and the South Hyco Creek at places where they cross this property. Now, I have yet to find my own information that says it's actually still there. Like I say, it was listed back in 1988. But it does concern me that whenever you got right feedback back from North Carolina and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, that he was not mentioned. But anyway, we will go on with that. I haven't found any recent surveys that confirm or deny that the James spiny mussel still exists in these 2 tributaries. I've conducted my own mussel survey in the last couple weeks, been going up and down through the waters. I've seen a very healthy ecosystem. We have very clean water here in our county. We've got very rich aquatic life. I found numerous types of mussels, none that I could positively identify as a James spiny mussel. Actually picked some up, put them in a bucket, and offered to take them down to state. And they told me if I got caught with one, I'd be put in federal prison. So I didn't do that anymore. But we have a lot of mussels here in our creeks and around. And I guess if he was easy to find, he wouldn't be rare or endangered. So the point of all this is the water quality, which exists now, is very, very well suited to mussels and the aquatic life. It has not been polluted. It has not been tainted with silt. The soil makeup here is coarse. It's sandy. It's saprolite. That's the reason it grows such good tobacco around here. But you know that it's not fine. It's not silt-like, and it's not real clay-like land, which is bad on the mussels. Research shows that mussels thrive in clean running water, and this is the #1 reason for their mussel kills and their population declines is silt in the rivers, in the streams. A 3-inch mussel, it is said, such as the James spiny mussel, he can purify up to 15 gallons of water a day. That's a pretty good job for something very small. It takes water, pulls it through its valves, and puts out and cleans it, purifies it, puts it back out. But if you have all this silt running off of all this washed gravel and you've got this new silt going into our creeks and streams, it effectively kills these mollusks. It blocks their valves, they're gone. The proposed location for this quarry is a mere 828 feet from the head of Roxborough Lake. The property is dissected by the 3 main tributaries, all the locations Sunrock could choose. One has to question why this residential agricultural property and why they would want to put it here. As evidenced here tonight by the outpouring of the community and for the reasons that they've all given and will continue to give as long as y'all sit here, we just say this is not the appropriate place for a rock quarry. After all, one of Sunrock's main values, and their corporate values, says environmental sustainability. In its own words, in its little flyers that it hands out, it has had on, at Sunrock, we are committed to sustainable development, to using North Carolina's resources responsibly and meeting present needs while never compromising the future of our environment. As a corporate citizen, our company, strives to act as a good steward over the land on which we operate our facilities. We collectively ask you tonight, make them stand behind it. It's time to put your money where your mouth is. Do not tear up our streams. Do not kill our wildlife. We do not wish the quarry to be here, and we need some protection. We ask you, please deny this permit. Thank you.
Michael Graves.
Good evening. My name is Michael Graves. I'm one of the members at Piedmont Progressive Farmers Group. Our mission is to work with underserved farmers in the county. And our concern is that, as previously mentioned, agriculture being the #1 industry in the county, by us working with farmers, our intentions are to get each farmer GAP certified that we can go into the major markets. We currently serve Raleigh, Durham, Hillsborough, Chapel Hill, Virginia, Rockingham County, and Greensboro are some of our sites that we sell our products in. We raise free-range beef, goats, sheep, and vegetables. And if we're to continue to expand our markets, we have to be GAP certified, good agricultural practice. And in doing so, one of the things that they look at is our water quality. It has to be tested. And if it will not pass, that means our farmers that we have in our group will not be able to sell their products in the major markets around this area. And that would be devastating. If a farmer produces about $50,000 in income on his vegetables and he can't sell them, that's something that he can't recover And I would not want to buy a product that is tainted. That's one of the things that we're trying to do, provide a safe and healthy product for our consumers. And if the farmers in that area is in our group and their products is contaminated, that'll be devastating to their livelihood. And I thank you for this time.
Bill Bush.
Good evening, I'm Bill Bush. I live on Park Springs Road here in Caswell. And to everyone who's been saying it's not too late, I will tell you, those of us who went through the BFI fight in 1991, it's not too late, but now is the time you've got to do something. I want to, instead of looking at what might happen in the next year or two, I want to look 40 years down the road right now with a short summary of the typical history of the extraction industry in the United States. What usually happens is a dump, a mine, a coal mine, fracking, whatever, comes in. A big company, they come in going gangbusters, they run it hard, they make a ton of money out of it up front. As it starts to go downhill, to get smaller, to be less efficient, they sell it off to another company, which runs it a while and then sells it off to another lesser company. And of course, all the while, all the background accumulation of negatives is getting higher and higher, and these operations get sold to groups that are less and less able to deal with cleaning up those negatives. And in the end, you end up with a coal mining company that goes bankrupt, and you have, for instance, like in Pennsylvania, mines that have been burning underground for 50 years, and people can't live on top of that. You have places where the water's ruined with fracking, and they turn on the sink, and you've probably seen the pictures. You can hold the lighter to the kitchen sink, flames. You have an abandoned dump, landfill, and there's no company left to take care of the losses incurred by cleaning up the water that leaks out of it, and it is toxic sludge that comes out. What's left is a mess. Somebody else is left with the money. The profits have been privatized, the losses end up socialized, and they'd be socialized onto us here in Caswell County. We would get to pay for any cleanup left. We would have to assume control and responsibility for whatever mess is left behind. I'd like everyone to think about that before it is too late. Thank you.
Bert Lee.
Good evening, honored officials. Thank you for this opportunity to speak and share my concerns. My name is Bert Lee, and I hope to plant a seed to prevent future issues. Looking over Sunrock's application submitted, it appears flawless. They do have really good lawyers. All the issues and requirements are addressed or met. It addresses a stormwater permit, air quality permit, ENSC permit, and future NPDES permits. These are required to establish the means to govern and control the company to protect all our natural resources. Now, this general NCDEQ permit granted by Demler is just that, it's general. But as long as the standards and benchmarks are met as defined in the general permit, life is good, right? But consider over time, processes have problems. Mechanical means fail. Exceedances are likely. What then? The environment starts accumulating these failures. And over time, well, resources suffer, especially downstream areas. For example, let's just consider one of the permits, the stormwater permit. The stormwater permit is written to monitor stormwater runoff from the facility where it has been in contact with the processes of operation at designated outfalls that exit the boundaries of the facility. The permit has benchmark values to meet, such as your total suspended solids, TSS. Benchmark values not met come with no financial burdens to the company. For example, if, say, the TSS benchmark was exceeded during a sampling period, then this first time occurrence, according to the general permit, would only require the company to investigate and report back to the state as to why this occurred and how it has been addressed to prevent in the future. This action meets the Tier 1 requirement of the permit, and sampling is not required again for 6 months. Now, 6 months later, say a sample taken from the same outfall exceeds the TSS again, what happens? The company is now under a Tier 2 action, which again is no financial burden to the company, only more explanation to the state with proof some action has taken place to prevent reoccurrence and more frequent sampling, every 3 months now, not 6. If a reoccurrence happens a third time, the company falls into a Tier 3 level, and the state will more than likely step in at this point and impose more stringent steps. Still not much financial burden to Sunrock, and sampling becomes at least monthly. My point is the accumulation of detriment to the environment, again, especially downstream of the process. And of course, we all know what is downstream. It's a WS2 Class B high water quality watershed, a very significant supply for drinking water. I thank you for allowing me this time to have a voice. My hope is your consideration to prevent future battles and your evaluation of how well Sunrock has honored and met their permits at other locations. Progress is a great thing, but not at the expense of the environment. Thank you.
I'm not sure if following people wants to speak or not. They put X mark Belinda Lane.
Good afternoon. My name is Belinda Lane. We're relatively newcomers to North Carolina. We've only been here 10 years, but we were hoping to be here a lot longer. We live at 1540 North Carolina Highway 49. We're the first house past Run Road, according to the fire department, heading towards Roxborough. Carolina Sunrock has asked for a permit for a quarry, but along with this quarry comes an asphalt plant. That asphalt plant is right around the corner from me. They have started construction. The land buffers are in place, and what appears to be some of their rusty storage equipment is also there. During the day when they are working, we can hear the beeping and roar of their heavy equipment and trucks. Besides the noise pollution, there are many other pollutants which this plant will add into the air as they load the asphalt into the trucks to be hauled from the plant site. These include volatile organic compounds, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and of course the very minute particulates like silica dust. Asphalt plants mix gravel and sand with crude oil derivatives to make the asphalt used to pave roads, highways, and parking lots. Billions of pounds of chemicals are released into the air during production each year. The chemicals include many cancer-causing toxic pollutants such as arsenic, benzene, formaldehyde, and cadmium. The following facts are an excerpt from the asphalt plant pollution publication from the Be Safe platform of the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice in Falls Church, Virginia. The federal EPA states asphalt processing facilities are major sources of hazardous air pollutants such as formaldehyde, hexane, phenol, polycyclic organic matter, and toluene. Exposure to these air toxics may cause cancer, central nervous system problems, liver damage, respiratory problems, and skin irritations. Studies show that PAHs affect reproduction, cause birth defects, and are harmful to the immune system. A study was done by the New Jersey Department of Health Senior Services. The United States Department of Health and Human Services has determined that many of the PAHs can be carcinogenic to humans. The Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League, a regional environmental organization, has done studies on the adverse impacts on both property values and health for residents living near asphalt plants. In a study, nearly half of the residents reported negative impacts on their health from a new asphalt plant. The door-to-door survey found 45% of residents living within a half-mile of that plant reported a deterioration of their health, which began after the plant opened. The most frequent problems cited were high blood pressure, sinus problems, headaches, and shortness of breath. Large amounts of harmful fumigative emissions are released as the asphalt is moved around in trucks and conveyor belts and stored in stockpiles. A small asphalt plant producing 100,000 tons of asphalt a year may release up to 50 tons of toxic fumigative emissions into the air. If this plant meets all state and federal air pollution standards, those of us living nearby will still be exposed to the cancer-causing substances that can cause long-term anguish. Federal regulations based on acceptable risk and self-regulating honor systems do not make me very comfortable having this plant in our neighborhood. Thank you for your time, and I plead with you to deny the permit to Carolina Sunrock for this quarry and their subsequent asphalt plant.
Timothy Lane.
My name is Tim Lane. I live with my wife at 1540 Highway 49. I just want to add just a brief illustration to what my wife just spoke about. I drew up a couple of maps off of some Google Maps, and there are 3 residences within 1/4 mile or less. There are 3 residences within 1/4 mile or less of the proposed asphalt plant. There are 12 residences within a half a mile. There's over 60 people within that short area. And that area grows exponentially as that distance increases, obviously. It's within a mile of the downtown Prospect Hill. And I think we need to do everything we can to protect the health and welfare of the people. Thank you.
Graham Zimmerman.
My name is Graham Zimmerman, and my family lives at 732 Solomon Road, Leesburg, North Carolina. 50 miles from here is Butner Quarry, and unfortunately, residents just like you have felt its impact for decades. Laverne Marks lived a mile from the quarry. Nearly every room in her 50-year-old double brick home had cracks in the walls from the blasting. One blast was so powerful that it sent a crack down her entire living room wall, sheer through to the outside of her home. So, Vern, as her grandchildren and great-grandchildren would call her, filed a lawsuit. The company fought back, arguing that she had poor soil. If only her property was in better condition, they told her, this wouldn't be a problem. Another resident, Mike Beal, lived less than a mile from that same quarry, and cracks showed up in his walls, in the chimney, in his garage. His home was less than a decade old. He complained, so the quarry brought in engineers and measured the blasting. They told him that they were within legal limits, not their fault. If only your property was in better condition, Mike, this wouldn't be a problem. Sunrock is the reason for us here tonight, and Sunrock, as it turns out, is also the company that owns Butner Quarry. And Scott Martino, Sunrock's manager of environmental compliance, says the company operates under the simple core value of do the right thing. According to him, this core value shows the company's commitment to the safety of the residents in which it works. Sometimes, as it turns out, doing the right thing is easier said than done. Because why else would Sunrock have told Vern and Mike that their crumbling homes were their problems? If they lived by their core value of do the right thing, why else in 2004 would Sunrock have then filed for a permit to expand that very quarry by 300 acres right up to Mike Beal's property line? Well, Carolina Sunrock doesn't actually have one simple core value, they have four. Excellence through integrity, execution, and innovation, opportunity for all team members, do the right thing, and finally, perhaps less poetic than the rest, the market is boss. Regulations for the noise, for the impact on our watershed and the water we drink, for our roads and homes and churches and community can only do so much. They won't prevent direct and substantial physical hazards to this community's safety or to the homes and churches that have lined Ridgeville Road for over 100 years. And as we now know, we can't hope that Sunrock will choose to do the right thing when deciding how to respond to this community when, not if, these impacts come. In fact, history shows that they won't. If Sunrock is here tonight, listening to us remind them that their words are as hollow as the earth they leave behind, we already know which value they will choose. And the late Pope John Paul II reminds us that the earth will not continue to offer its harvest except with faithful stewardship. To the Department of Environmental Quality, you are the stewards of our state. We ask that you make the right choice. Thank you.
Mark Chandler. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Mark Chandler, and my wife and I live at 133 Lakeview Road on Prospect Hill. I am a licensed professional geologist in Washington and Virginia, graduate studies in hydrogeology from the University of Montana, the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology, and Wright State University. A colleague of mine, John Dussman from Summit EnviroSolutions, and I have reviewed the hydrogeological study and related data prepared for Carolina Sunrock by Piedmont Geologic. There are several observations and inconsistencies in the data which cause us to have questions and significant concerns regarding the results of the conclusions of this study. On page 5 of the study, it states that groundwater at the site appears to occur within the overburden and underlying bedrock in unconfined conditions. The data and observations submitted do not support this statement. For example, the observations during drilling and the rapid response to pumping at the observation wells both indicate confined conditions. Although the barometric pressure was not recorded during the test, however, longer-term groundwater level monitoring along with barometric pressure would likely indicate the groundwater present and fractures of the diorite bedrock occur under confined conditions. This invalidates the assumptions used by Newman and Tice solutions as presented in Appendixes C1 and C2, and the corresponding domino effect of invalidating the estimates of hydraulic conductivity, their distance drawdown measurements, and their selected model for steady groundwater flows into open excavations. We believe the company should answer the following questions. What is the interpretation of why there was more drawdown observed at observation well 1-1 and 1-2 than 1-3, which is located substantially closer to the pumping well? Would this be normal or invalidate the underlying assumptions used in the analysis? And it should be noted that both Newman and Tice assume aquifers that are homogeneous, uniform thickness, and an infinite aerial extent. What is the interpretation of the increased slope and drawdown after approximately 5 hours of pumping observed at observation well 1-2? Is this normal for an aquifer that does not exhibit a delayed gravity response, which is an underlying assumption for the TICE solution? What is the explanation for barometric pressure not being reported for the pumping wells? The hydrogeologic study also states an aquifer thickness of 270 feet was assumed for Area 2 wells, and an aquifer thickness of 273 feet was assumed for Area 1 wells based on the approximate maximum saturated thickness. The boring logs from the drilling of the pumping and observation wells do not support this groundwater system as having a uniform saturated thickness. For example, the log for OW1-3 indicates that at 162 feet, no significant water-bearing fractures encountered yet. The remainder for the log well indicates, quote, same as above for the remainder of the 300 feet. An observation well OW23 indicates very solid rock at 102 to 122 feet. The log indicates same as above until 250 feet, where a water-bearing fracture was eventually encountered. Additionally, on page 5 of the report, it states, groundwater in the underlying bedrock occurs along zones of secondary porosity, such as fractures, foliations, and solution voids. Therefore, using 200 and 273 feet of saturated thickness is an obvious misrepresentation of the groundwater system. Groundwater and surface water are hydraulically connected. Sugar Tree Creek, which is classified as a Water 2, high-quality water, flows through the proposed quarry property. This creek is a tributary to Lake Roxborough and is classified as a Water Supply 2, high-quality water, and is the secondary drinking water source for the city of Roxborough. According to the maps submitted as part of the permit application, proposed Quarry Pit B will be a little over 100 feet away from Sugar Tree Creek. What will be the effect of blasting and dewatering on Sugar Tree Creek? A U.S. Geological Survey literature review publication notes that engineering activities associated with quarrying can directly change the course of surface water. Groundwater being pumped from quarries diverts groundwater away from streams and changes streams from gaining streams, which are replenished with groundwater, to losing streams, which become depleted.
Mr. Chandler, your
May I
time
have
is
just a
up.
few more seconds, please?
Okay, please, sir.
Additionally, dewatering can drain nearby surface water features such as ponds and wetlands. Similarly, blasting can modify groundwater flow, which ultimately can modify surface water flow. I'll let my wife finish where I left off.
Okay.
Thank you.
We do cover it. Virginia Chandler.
I'm Virginia Chandler, the wife of Mark Chandler, and also reside at 133 Lakeview Road in Prospect Hill, and I will continue where he left off. Another concern is in regard to the laboratory analysis of groundwater sample collected from pumping well 2. Mercury was detected at a concentration of 0.461 micrograms per liter. This level is above the North Carolina surface water quality standard. This concentration was flagged by the laboratory as having potential cross-contamination associated with the laboratory blank. A second sample was not collected and resubmitted for analysis. Why not? We do not have results for that. Additionally, why were surface water quality standards applied to a groundwater sample? And given the granitic nature of the bedrock and the proximity of the proposed quarry to Water Supply 2 high-quality water in a secondary reservoir, why wasn't testing for radionuclides conducted? There is no municipal water supply for area residents, and all water must be obtained from private water supply wells. In the conclusions and discussion sections of the hydrogeological study report, it states, the drawdown would likely be greater in magnitude and aerial extent than observed during the pumping tests due to sustained and prolonged dewatering of the quarrying pits that would be typical of quarrying operations. As such, the quarry dewatering process could potentially impact off-site private water supply wells located within the estimated zone of hydraulic influence through localized drawdown of the aquifer, which could result in reduced groundwater production rates for the private water supply wells. So questions. What would the estimated radius of influence be if calculations based on a confined aquifer, as the submitted data suggests the aquifer is, were used rather than the unconfined methodology that was submitted? Additionally, what would the estimated radius of influence be if the modeling did not erroneously assume a 270-foot saturated thickness of the bedrock? From the USDA Technical Guide to Managing Groundwater Resources, quote, effective management of water resources in a fractured rock hydrogeological setting must be based on a sound conceptual understanding of the groundwater flow systems that occur in the areas to be managed. Because of the heterogeneous and anisotropic nature of fractured rocks settings, it has proven difficult to manage water resources in these settings. In fractured rock settings, sustained development is greatly complicated by uncertainties about actual watershed dimensions and annual water budgets associated in these aquifer systems. The actual radius of influence of quarry dewatering is not known due to the issues and inconsistencies in the hydrogeologic study report as it is submitted. Fractured rock aquifers are complex and difficult to manage. Recommendations include that a fractured study of the bedrock be done to determine the void and block thickness, that a sustained pumping test at the designated pumping rate for dewatering the quarry over a period of 2 weeks or a month should be conducted with concurrent stream gauging in Sugar Tree Creek, and collection and additional analyses of groundwater samples should be conducted. Additionally, calculation of the radius of influence should be calculated based on the appropriate methodologies for a fractured bedrock aquifer system. For the protection of the groundwater supply, for the families that rely on private water supply wells, and for the farmers that rely on those wells for the production of their products, for the protection of Sugar Tree Creek, additional tributaries to Lake Roxborough and Lakes Roxborough, and the people in Person County and the city of Roxborough that rely on that source of water for their drinking water, we ask that you act to deny the mining permit for this proposed quarry. Thank you.
Matthew Ruiz.
My name is Matthew Ruiz. I live at 909 Goodwin Road in Durham. If you're wondering why I'm coming from Durham, it's because, as someone mentioned earlier, you pissed off one of the local institutions. Sunrock did, not you guys, sorry. Sunrock pissed off one of the local academic institutions. I'm not going to name which one, because I can't speak on behalf of the institution I'm from. But academia is looking at this, and we are here to help you, so I'm here today to speak. Unfortunately, North Carolina has been gaining notoriety for environmental issues, particularly with drinking water. In 2015, a colleague of mine at the EPA detected Gen X in the Cape Fear River. In 2018, over 19,000 homeowners in eastern Wake County were notified that their private wells may be contaminated with radiological chemicals such as uranium, radon, and radium from the underlying granite. Just this summer, 1,4-dioxane was detected in the drinking water of thousands of residents in Pittsboro. Individuals here in Prospect Hill and the surrounding areas are all on private wells, and thus there is no one checking on the levels of these chemicals in their drinking water. As you are aware, the watershed that this quarry is planned to occupy is used as a secondary water supply for the city of Roxborough. I think that the last thing the DEQ wants is another contaminated drinking water supply. In the application, Carolina Sunrock has failed to disclose which blasting materials and chemicals they plan to use, and therefore we do not know what to monitor for. Furthermore, comments provided by the EWR and Carolina Wildlife have specific details on what water chemistry, have not specified which specific details on water chemistry parameters that they plan to monitor, and to be sure we are protecting our drinking water fully. It is also unclear as to who will be monitoring water chemistry and how contaminated wastewater will be prevented from entering our waterways. To talk about erosion and soil erosion and sedimentation, a scientific study performed in the Hubbard Brook Experimental Forest in New Hampshire investigated the effect of whole tree clear cutting within a watershed on nutrient cycling, water chemistry, and soil erosion. They published their results in the Journal of Plant and Soil in 1994 and found that when several acres of forest are cleared adjacent to water bodies, there was an increase in water acidification and a significant input of nitrogen, phosphorus, and dissolved organic carbon into these water bodies. Furthermore, the reduction of canopy cover led to significant increase in water temperature, thus enhancing the conditions necessary for eutrophication and hypoxia, resulting in devastating effects on the aquatic ecosystem. According to the permit application, sediment basins and silt fences will only be installed during construction and will be removed when a quote, good stand of grass has become established. Given that we have seen a significant increase in the occurrence of 50, 100, and 500-year floods in the last decade here in North Carolina, we know that these engineered controls are not equipped to handle these storm events. What controls are being put into place to prevent the deleterious effects of deforestation, increased soil erosion, stream sedimentation, acidification, and eutrophication to effectively protect our water quality and recreation here at Roxborough Lake? Thank you.
Lynn Pendergrass. I'm sorry about that.
I am Lynn Pendergrass. My husband Frankie and I have lived on Wren Road since 1994. We're chicken farmers and have been since December of 1996. We have two 500-foot houses. Our contract is for hatching eggs, and our contract is with Allen Harim out of Liberty, North Carolina. Our chicken houses are within a mile of the quarry site. We are very concerned about a lot of factors regarding a possible quarry, but our biggest fear is the effect it will have on our chicken houses. Water and wells. We have 6 wells on our property. We are concerned about the water quality and the quantity of all 6. Our livelihood is eggs. We have 2 500-foot houses, over 13,000 layers in each house. At the peak of the flock, we can get as many as 10,000 eggs per day. An egg is 98% water. Without plenty of water, our chickens cannot survive. We fear for the quantity and the quality. We have 3 wells to furnish our chicken houses, and all 3 are in the 1-mile circle on the quarry map. Our chickens drink between 2,500 and 3,500 gallons of water a day. If our wells run dry and our chickens have no water, we lose our chickens and the contract for hatching eggs. Our contract specifies that we maintain 25 gallons per minute of water per chicken house. If we don't accomplish that, we have voided our contract with Allen Harim. There are over 20 motors in each chicken house moving air and feed. The silicon dust sucked in by the fans could cause malfunction in the fans, which will stop the airflow necessary for temperature control in the house. Potentially, it could also cause problems with the chicken feeders, which must work properly in order for the chickens to eat each morning. We are in big trouble without proper fan activity. Chickens are affected by noise and vibration. These factors can cause them to stop laying. The noise from the quarry activities and the vibrations from the explosives could cause us to receive no eggs. Eggs are necessary for us to make a living. We also need water to survive. We also need clean air to breathe. Just a little research on silicon dust runs up a big red flag that is harmful to anyone's health to breathe silicon dust. Along with everyone else in Caswell County that is sickened at the thought of a potential damage a quarry would cause to our health, the health of our children, the health of our grandchildren, the health of our animals, the effects on our property that we love, the effects on the water we drink, and the air that we breathe. Please, please say no to a quarry in Caswell County.
Ben Solomon.
Good evening. Thank you for your time and patience. My name is Ben Solomon. I live on Ridgeville Road, 2377. Our property is adjacent to the proposed quarry. So in my family, I'm the third generation to continue farming as a source of income. And our family is in the process of closing on my grandparents' farm, which is adjacent to the proposed quarry. Historically, the Caswell County local economy has always relied on agriculture, and the same remains true today. By allowing a quarry to move into Prospect Hill, not only will residents be affected from the negative environmental and health impacts, our source of livelihood will also be compromised. Also, this land to be mined is a misuse of the state's resources. The tract that Sunrock plans to purchase is prime agricultural land, something that is an asset to a farmer like myself and my father and my brother and much of our family. It's prime farmland like this that has allowed our county and its residents to thrive for centuries. Our farm that is adjacent to the property relies on well water as our main source of irrigation. With the impacts to the local hydrology and the local aquifer, as Mr. and Ms. Chandler have very well and thoroughly stated, our livelihood is dependent on this healthy aquifer, and we fear that they may come to an end with the introduction of a quarry. Another big concern is the safety of farmers like myself, my father, and my brother, who will be driving up and down Ridgeville Road on a daily basis. There's not a day from February to November that a slow-moving tractor is not on Wren Road or on Ridgeville Road, Sunrock's preferred exit for hauling rock. Agriculture has always been a cornerstone in our community, and us farmers and our families are dependent on it staying that way. Thank you.
Lyndon Harris.
I'll just submit my comments in writing. I think they've been addressed this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mark Wren.
My name is Mark Wren. I live at 2372 Ridgeville Road, directly beside this proposed rock quarry. I don't doubt that Sunrock doesn't have geologists that can find rock, but the location sucks, okay? It's in a watershed. What is a watershed for? Protect water, correct? That's what a watershed is for. So why would you want a quarry in a watershed? That's my question. I mean, what is there? Well, 100 quarries in North Carolina. I think there may be one that's in a watershed. It definitely doesn't have 3 creeks going across it. Like John was saying earlier, I was raised on that farm. My grandfather farmed that farm. I know a lot about that farm. There's underground springs on that farm. I'm sure they found rock out there. But they haven't done any studies on that about the water. I've sunk my entire life savings in my home. If my well goes dry or it gets contaminated, what happens to me? My house is worth nothing. You gonna buy my house? Who's gonna buy my house? They're gonna truck water in for me. They're gonna put water in my well every day. I mean, if they can't prove that they're not gonna ruin my well or my neighbor's wells, the burden of proof's on them. It's not for us to come up here and say deny them a permit. It's up to them to say they can make sure they're not going to harm the environment or our wells. They haven't done that. You saw, I know you guys looked at the report. Pumping machine quit working 32 hours into a 48 program, but we had enough data. We had sensors go bad in this well, but I think we got enough data off the other 2 wells. We had a tainted mercury sample, but yet you don't go back and get another sample? My father just talked about open wells. Never was addressed. I think when you're looking at permits, you're not only looking at, are they meeting the minimal requirements, but do they take shortcuts? I would say if you don't go back and fill in your wells, that's a shortcut. I think when you get a jacked up hydraulics test, equipment goes bad. Anybody that runs a big company like that, you wouldn't accept a report like that. I wouldn't accept that. I hope they didn't pay for it. I know probably most people here haven't seen that report. I know you probably have. If y'all looked at the permit, you have. There's no way anybody could accept that report. There's a lot of families depend on water. I'm one of them. At this point, I don't think I could sell my house if it comes. There's some people that talked about, they do real estate. They'll tell you right now, you take it by a house, it's a rock quarry there, I don't want it. So this is my life. I mean, simple as that. But I think you should look, when you're looking at this permit, you look at what they've done so far on this project. Don't fill in test wells. Don't accept a hydraulic report that's incomplete. I'd like to just throw it together to see if they can get a permit. That's what it looks like to me. You would think that they didn't even know about the Roxborough Lake. It serves 8,000 people. They didn't know it was there. I think you got to question judgment. Would you want it behind your house? I mean, if that kind of judgment, digging wells, just leaving them? There's a gentleman here, he's not here today, that lives beside where they started the project 4 or 5 years ago on Wren Road. It looks like a desert now. You got to go by and see it. I think that's things you have to consider as well. Their judgment. A lack of judgment to pick a watershed. One little corner of Caswell County's got a watershed in it. They picked it. They don't even have 3-phase power out there. Ask them what they're going to do about power. Infrastructure. Very likely they don't have nothing. They just, like somebody said, throw the dart up there, it looks like. Thank you for your time.
Mark Langen.
Hi, my name is Mark Langen, and I live at 1078 Wilson Road, Hurdle Mills, North Carolina. I want to thank you for your time and for everybody's patience here. Before attending Cornell University and studying environmental sciences and natural resources, I spent a summer working with the park rangers in Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C. After my senior year of high school, I learned a lot about native species and controlling non-native species such as kudzu. I also learned how challenging it can be to have protected national park on the periphery of a big city. There were constant struggles dealing with encroachment and development near the park. I imagine this is the challenge NCDEQ faces on a daily basis. You have to balance your mission, which is to provide science-based environmental stewardship for the health and prosperity of all North Carolinians with the needs of the people and the desires of developers to encroach on natural protected lands. What Sunrock proposes, I can plainly state, is non-native encroachment on rural residential wetlands that would have profound detrimental effects on Caswell County and the surrounding counties. Despite Sunrock claims, a 300-plus acre stone quarry that will quickly become a 680-acre stone quarry with an asphalt mixing plant is not environmental stewardship for the health and prosperity of all North Carolinians. The proposed area includes creeks that feed drinking water, Lake Roxborough, which is less than 1,000 feet away, tobacco farmland and other farmland and nearby neighbors who treasure the quiet country and the beautiful wetlands. In my opposition, I will focus on the negative effects of dump truck diesel, as there will be numerous small and large dump trucks transporting aggregates wherever this quarry is placed. Diesel exhaust and particulates from such an operation will affect the air that we breathe. Rock extraction and dump truck transportation make quarry operation both a stationary and a mobile source of particulate matter, respectively. A study published in the Journal of Air Waste Management found high concentrations of fine and coarse particulates in a quarry's neighbor surroundings. Another later study published in the same journal found fine and coarse rock particulates and fine soot particles from the diesel used in the explosions of a quarry. In fact, a major source of soot particles in quarries is derived from the diesel exhaust of the dump trucks used to transport the extracted aggregates. Diesel engines emit a complex mixture of air pollutants composed of a variety of harmful gases and solid materials, which include carbon particles and over 40 other known cancer-causing substances. Also, dump trucks disperse particles to the surroundings when they traverse the unpaved roads of quarries and when they dump their cargo. Diesel exhaust and particulates from quarries are suspended in the air. Thus, exposure to these pollutants occurs whenever a person breathes air that contains these substances. Those living or spending time near the quarries or the roads with the diesel dump truck traffic face exposure to higher levels of particulate matter and may face higher health risks. Multiple studies, including from the EPA and the California EPA, have shown that particulate matter pollution from quarry operation and diesel exhaust is associated with an increase of several diseases such as heart diseases, respiratory diseases, and several types of cancer. A single quarry can operate 6 days per week and have more than 40 diesel truck trips daily to transport the aggregates. A study conducted in a quarry documented that although safety measures were taken in this quarry, diesel exhaust and particulates reached the surrounding communities over a mile away. I ask that you take this and all the other information you hear tonight as evidence that this permit does not follow your mission of science-based environmental stewardship for the health and prosperity of all North Carolinians, and that you decline Sunrock's permit. Thank you.
Steve and Frankie Solomon.
I'm Steve Solomon, and we do not live on Solomon Road, but we do live about 500 feet from the property that the proposed quarry is on at the intersection of Wren Road and Ridgeville Road. Plenty of people have covered the main points here tonight, and I've simply been asked to read this resolution from the county commissioners that was signed this morning, and I will simply read that to you and give you the copy and leave it at that. Caswell County Local Government, a resolution advocating for the preservation and growth of a strong, rural, agricultural, environmentally friendly, healthy, and prosperous Caswell County, while encouraging and promoting responsible and planned economic development activities. Whereas Caswell County was founded in 1777, is located in the north central Piedmont region of North Carolina, has a population of over 20,000, and whereas Caswell County has been, since its founding, noted and characterized for its beautiful rural landscapes, which its citizens and representatives past and present have sought to preserve and promote. And whereas, being primarily a rural community with agriculture consisting over 90,000 acres and woodlands, Caswell County's land, water, and air have been and will continue to be a great asset to its people's health and prosperity and a driver of economic stability in the region. And whereas Caswell County's comprehensive plan and economic development action plan address the importance of economic development, environmental health, air and water quality, the health and safety of the citizens, agriculture, tourism, and farmland preservation. Whereas these plans, through citizen input, stress that policies assuring a healthy environment and maintaining Caswell County's air and water quality should be encouraged, as well as assuring that future development does not jeopardize the air and water quality. And whereas in Caswell County's Economic Development Action Plan, the following were viewed as strengths and opportunities: recreation, health care, agriculture, proximity to developed areas while retaining historical, cultural, and natural beauty and charm, good quality of life, water resources, lakes, forest, game lands, and clean water, being a pristine rural community. And whereas the citizens of Prospect Hill community and other county residents have expressed their concerns to the Board of Commissioners in several public meetings that they are proponents of preservation and growth of a strong rural agricultural, environmentally friendly, healthy, and prosperous county, and are concerned with current industrial and retail development plans within their community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Caswell County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby advocate for the preservation and growth of a strong rural agricultural, environmentally friendly, healthy, and prosperous Caswell County, as evidenced by the adoption of the Caswell County Comprehensive Plan and the Caswell County Economic Development Action Plan, but also encourage and promote responsible and planned economic development activities. Adopted on the 4th day of November 2019, and it's signed by all but one of the commissioners who was an absentee this morning.
Heather Langen.
I'm Heather Langen, 1078 Wilson Road, Hurdle Mills. First of all, thank you for being here tonight. I know that this is late and we're all tired. I really appreciate you all being here to hear us. So a lot of my points have already been covered, so I'll make this short. But I want to reiterate, Caswell County is a rural, peaceful home for people. Farms, there are protected waterways, endangered and protected wildlife, and I would like to emphasize that. The proposed quarry threatens these directly and threatens our positive developmental potential. People live here in Caswell because it is rural, because it is quiet. They ride horses, they see the stars at night, you can hear the birds, you can bask in the forest, you can drink clean water. So it's really hard to imagine what a quarry would do here. You've heard a lot about particulate matter, and I have more in my written comments I'll submit, so I'll leave it at that, as well as the asphalt processing fumes and the fugitive emissions there. Local waterways are home to countless wildlife, and this has been talked about a little bit, but it's worth repeating. We have federally protected and likely at least one, if not more, endangered species here. So we want to be able to look into that more, but I don't think anybody's yet mentioned that we do have eagles on the lake, and those are protected animals. They're affected profoundly by water because they eat primarily fish. So if fish are affected, eagles are affected. They're also affected by blasting. They're frequently disturbed by loud noises and have been known to abandon their nests in such a situation. Something that I wasn't going to really talk about, but I'll just mention it quickly. I have really serious mental health concerns regarding the blasting. Any operation that includes large, loud, frequent blasting can be very distressing to humans and animals, especially in a rural environment where people and animals are not used to that. This is not a city or a metropolitan area where people are used to hearing construction and sirens and so forth. It's very quiet here. So not only for people suffering from PTSD, such as veterans, and we've already heard from some veterans today, but for children, people who don't understand what's happening. We know we have disabled people living nearby where the quarry is proposed, and animals and livestock. We don't know the effect on them, but we can certainly assume that it would be intensely disturbing. I am a practicing trauma therapist, and I can say that whether or not somebody has PTSD, the effect of a loud blast or the vibration is going to be very affecting to the central nervous system, particularly for people or animals who don't understand what's happening. So I'm very concerned about this in terms of the deep damaging fallout that can occur from such stimuli. Finally, just to reiterate, there are just too many people, animals, farms, protected endangered wildlife, and vulnerable protected water sources. This just cannot be a viable legal enterprise. So we, the citizens, really hope that you, the NCDEQ, will embrace that mission that you state and protect our health, livelihoods, and natural environment by denying the application for a quarry in Caswell County. And again, I thank you so much for your patience and for being here.
Sarah Curtis.
Good evening. I did not grow up in Caswell County. I grew up in upstate New York on a state highway that was home to 2 stone quarries. And I do not want to see another community go through what we did for all those years. As people have already mentioned, wildlife habitats are totally destroyed. Air quality is horrible due to the stone dust, exhaust from the equipment, and the horrible smell from the asphalt plants. A lot of us have suffered from breathing problems and asthma due to the dust. You cannot open your windows, and everything outside is always covered in gray dust. Your life is no longer quiet, only on Sundays. Blasting noise, equipment running, truck tailgates slamming, constant backup alarms, and slowing truck jake brakes that enter the quarries is never ending. Blasting is extremely dangerous. Fly rock kills. We had a boulder land next to our swimming pool in our front yard. We also had a boulder land in front of a school bus on the New York State Thruway. Blasting ruins wells and septic systems. My grandmother's house was basically falling over. She lived there for 40 years and recently needed to vacate her property because her house is now going to be a part of the pit. They offered her $85,000. That may seem like a lot, but not for 40 years worth of memories. This quarry cannot come to this community. It will ruin people's lives. Thank you.
George Daniel.
First of all, thank you for being here. And thank you, commissioners. And I want to thank the representative and the senator that were here. First of all, let me say, Leslie, thank you. 3 hours ago, I walked in, there were 300 people in this room, and there's still almost 100, 75 to 100. And I want that to go on the record because given time, and you let the people that are affected by this, they will come and they will meet the needs of what you have to determine as to whether or not to site this quarry. I hope you've seen tonight, you've heard the arguments, not of emotion, you've heard arguments of science. You've heard arguments of survival. You've heard about in the 7 criteria that the department may deny a permit upon finding. You've heard about potable groundwater supplies. You've heard about wildlife. You've heard about fresh water, estuarine, and fishery. You've heard about groundwater quality, surface water quality. You've also heard about the direct and substantial physical hazard to public health and safety, neighboring dwelling houses, schools, churches. Yeah, Bruce, I was married in that church. Sat right next to you, Mr. Painter, and Fanny Sue's great-great-uncle, and my wife's great-great-grandfather.
Sir, we can't hear. We got, sir, can you turn around so we can?
Well, I was talking to them. I'm going to get around to you. I'm talking to them right now. So in any event, so you've heard the arguments, and this is what a public hearing is all about. And that's why the legislature has put this in this particular statute, so that when people find out what is going on, they can get together and what a job they've done just in a few weeks once they found out what was going on. I hope you've heard this loud and clear. We thank you for your attention tonight. And please, 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 and I'm speaking to you now, please do not cite this quarry here. Thank you.
Robert Bowers. Robert Bowers. Sir, if you want to step in, then.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to come. My name is Steve Small. I live at 169 Laurel Meadows Court, Caswell County. I used to drive for 3 different companies that worked out of quarries, from Winston-Salem all the way out to James Lake, Fayetteville. I've been to all of them. They are a mess. They are nothing but dust. If you ever go in there when we have a dry season, all you see is the trees is white from the dust from the quarries. The trucks I drove, even with the windows closed, you got dust. 3 or 4 times a day I'd blown my nose and all I had was dust come in. I ended up starting to wear a mask. They're no good. The water, surface water, it's unreal what runs off into the creek. You go riding around some of these and you'll see the creeks are white from the dust that's going into it. The gentleman talked about trucks. I was supposed to drive a truck one day that was using 5 gallons of hydraulic fluid that was leaking all over the ground. I almost got fired because I refused to drive it. If any state inspector ever go into some of these trucking divisions, half of them would be parked. They wouldn't be able to drive it. This quarry in Caswell County, I've seen what they do. I don't want it. I moved to Caswell County because it's a farming community. I love it. And the people are great, and we don't need anything to destroy it. And that will destroy Caswell County and the communities around it. So please, do not allow this to come into Caswell County. Thank you.
Tia Bowers. Okay.
I signed up for speech. My name is Michael Wang. Have a property, WANG, Michael Wang. I have a property off Roxborough Lake. I'm a 35-year environmental engineer, board certified by American Academy of Environmental Engineers, licensed in state of North Carolina and other 9 states. I'm also an adjunct professor at NC State, teaching senior design, water, wastewater treatment, and water resources. So I'm going to stick with my profession. A lot of my neighbors and friends already talk about the impact, so I won't repeat that to save time. First thing I want to talk about is groundwater capacity. When you draw that water, right, you will form a cone and lower the well levels. And Steve or Mark, they mentioned 3.0 million gallons a day. I want to put it into perspective. 3 million gallons a day could serve Caswell County residents for 2 days. Water supply, especially they're using groundwater only. That's not much, but talk about perspective. Can serve water, save the drinking water for 40 to 50 days, right? That's a lot of water. And So the capacity is very important. Another thing is that much water, you got to dewater, right? People already talk about NPDES. I'm not going to repeat. That stands for National Pollutant Discharge and Emission System. So that's already implied it's a wastewater, right, or pollutants. Two things. One is the turbidity, one is the pH. And that's what that water is going to go somewhere. It's going to the lake, the Roxborough Lake. That's a secondary water supply for the city of Roxborough. Right? That means operators have to treat the water using additional chemicals. And another thing is they could treat this water on site, but there is a requirement for the chemicals, right? You should use the North Carolina 15A, the Administrative Code 18C subchapter. So that's a lot of work for the treatment, the quality. Incidentally, I came from Raleigh. Right now, there is a meeting, 99th Annual North Carolina American Water Works Association Conference right now. I came over here because there were 1,200 plus people there representing 65 utilities, 60 consulting engineers firms, and the public water supply people, regulatory agencies, to talk about how to preserve our beautiful water in North Carolina, right? And to preserve our environment for not only for the people here, but for our children, grandchildren, and generations to come. So I come here, I'm supposed to be at the meeting, but I came here because I hope we're doing this right thing over there. I hope y'all doing the right thing for our next generation. There seem a lot of people saying it's not too late. However, if we let this happen, it'll be too late. Thank you very much.
Marvin Winstead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Marvin Winstead. I'm not a resident of Caswell County. I travel up here tonight from Nash County, North Carolina, about 98 miles away. I was contacted by local residents in Prospect Hill telling me about the problems of this proposed rock quarry project. As I sat here this evening, I crossed off lots of things I was going to say because it's already been covered by local people. You've heard all fact after fact after fact, not just opinions, but facts, researched, hard facts. They've said you have 7 criteria to deny a permit. You've heard them all tonight. Please do your job, deny the permit. Thank you.
Amy McCantley. I'm sorry for butchering all your last names.
So my name is Amy McCauley. I live at 1262 Tombos Road. I am in Person County. So basically, everyone has touched on so many of the things that I'm concerned about. However, unlike anything I've heard tonight, my home is not only my private home, it's licensed by the state to provide for mental and physical disabilities. I worry about damage to my home, well, septic, property, just like everyone else. But also, the impact it's going to have on the clients that I care for. And someone's already touched on PTSD. I actually have a client living in my home that has PTSD. I have receipts. My son has had asthma his whole life. There's been plenty of activities he's been denied to be a part of. That never consisted of the lake. The lake has always been our refuge. He takes 4 medicines daily for asthma. So how is this going to contribute to what he's already going through? Something that really bothers me is I am, again, well number 18, directly across from the proposed mining pits. Several years ago, there was smoke daily for a week, billowing onto my property, with ashes landing on the roof of my house, resulting in a 911 call to Person County. A call was made, and the fire stopped. Is this what I have to look forward to daily, with dust billowing onto my property? How does this affect me, my residents, my son? It's the same thing that everyone here is concerned with. It's the same thing. Please deny. Thank you.
Barry Hager.
Good evening, and thank you. If you are living within a 5-mile radius, you will be affected by injurious events of particulate matter carried by prevailing winds into the air. There are certain health risks from these pollutants: water destruction, as we've all been talking about, soil erosion. It's going to hurt air pollution, habitat destruction, biodiversity. The human condition and air movements are going to create respiratory ailments, skin and eye problems, silicosis, and respiratory and pulmonary problems, bronchitis, pneumonia, tuberculosis, lung cancer, heart disease, stroke, infertility, pregnancy complications. And the granite rocks, the rocks that they're going to be crushing have 71% crystalline silica in them. Limestone and basalt contains up to 40% crystalline silicas in them. This dust is going to lodge into our lungs. The asphalt plants, 45% of the people near the asphalt plants will be affected, and there's going to be high blood pressure and sinus problems from that. The plant life, my tomatoes are going to get silica on them. My cucumbers are going to get silica on them. It really hurts me. What will the deposition do to the plants that will carry these pollutants? Well, it's going to affect the oxygen and carbon dioxide through photosynthetic activities are going to decrease in our trees. The air pollution is going to really cause a significant impact in plant biodiversity, habitat destruction, foliar injury to our plants, pest control for our plants, pollination of our plants. Crop yields can be up to 30% less, and even plant extinction is possible. So, please don't change. Thank you. Thank you.
Guy Pleasant.
Thank you very much. My name is Gay Pleasant. I live at 1268 Painter Road in Prospect Hill, a little less than 2 miles from the site of the proposed rock quarry. And I'm a member of the church that is directly across from the proposed quarry site on Ridgeville Road. I am skipping a lot of my speech because other people have already addressed these points and it's late. The basic principle being violated here is that people have the right to the peaceful enjoyment of their property. They have a right to feel safe in their homes, and they have the right to have a dependable water source. And all of us are dependent on our wells. If we have chosen to live in a rural setting, and we made the personal sacrifices necessary to set up a home here, people have a reasonable expectation to be able to enjoy the natural peace and quiet of that setting. If I could speak to Carolina Sunrock directly, I would say the reason there's so much resistance to your plan is because you are trying to locate in the wrong place. This area is suited to agricultural business and rural residential living, not heavy industry. I ask the DEQ, please act in the public interest, protect our water, and deny this permit. No company, no matter their financial interests, no matter how big and organized, no matter its power or industry insider connections, should be able to take these property rights away from the people of Caswell County. Thank you.
Stephen Pulliam.
Hello, my name is Stephen Pulliam. I'm the Dan River Keeper and president for Good Stewards of Rockingham. I live in Stoneville, 790 Stone Mountain Road. I'd like to reiterate some of the things that people have spoken about endangered species. They have been identified in Caswell County previously. They are current, but there's still no data of recent to show any kind of cataloging or any kind of centralized database of what's here. I would highly recommend that a third-party investigation be commissioned to identify those species. The waters within the parcel may not support the life on their own, but the watershed that they feed is a prime candidate for the sustenance of these resources and that would provide the life for these species. Again, you have quite a community here. Everybody's been over pretty much these 20-some pages that I put together over the past few weeks, so these people are amazing. Yeah. We have concerns about the quality and quantity available of the groundwater to the domestic wells. There's 50 residents within 1,000 feet of the proposed site and 70 within a mile. The quarry blasting will exceed the depth of those wells and to nearby 71 domestic and private wells. The potential to compromise any of those well sources is possible by reducing the water table during quarry construction, during operation, long-term 50-year impacts. Hyco Creek, the headwaters to Roxborough Lake, which is a supplemental resource for 8,000 residents for Roxborough, 1,000 feet. It's really concerning for any stormwater, for any discharge, for torrential rains. There's the erosion controls that they have in place are not adequate. The boundaries are not adequate. The silt terrain, the fencing, it will not hold, especially if you go out in the site terrain. It's been mismanaged. There's not a lot of BMPs that have been in place. It's been logged. It's been left. The wetlands have been delineated. It poses a pretty good risk to water quality, especially going back to the endangered species. Any increase in turbidity, any increase of pH or decrease of pH, any discharge of chemicals, and again, there's upwards of 190,000 gallons of chemicals that will be stored in the site between 14 different vats. If one of those 20,000 vats goes, that's a significant impact to any potential, and not just the current ecosystems, biodiversity, everything could be upended pretty quickly. To touch back on some of the things that people have said about concerns with noise and vibrations to livestock, to domesticated animals, pets, wildlife, there are proven links to not just affecting their behavior, but affecting their diet, their attitudes, their productivity, the meat quality, the weight, and even for poultry that's free range or contained. Like everybody said, the chicken lady. I couldn't get up with exactly who she was, but I'm guessing it was the lady that spoke earlier. The other was Baldwin Farms, who is a larger business supplier of cattle meat that lives in the area and actually has a contract, from my understanding, with Whole Foods for grass-fed beef. There's a pretty substantial claim that he would have to any disruption of his grass-fed ability if there is, sediment, silica, particulate matter that's being deposited in any amount. USDA regulations are pretty stout, and I would be of particular concern to his operation. These are a few of the things. Everybody's touched on particulate matter, inhalation, dust, silica, so I'm not going to go over that, the short or long-term significant impacts. But these are statistics from the NCDEQ Environmental Justice Mapping Tool. The Census Tract 9306, which is southeast Caswell County, 39% of the area population is considered dependent, which would be less than 18 years old or greater than 65 years of age. They would be a lot more susceptible to risk from adverse impacts from any of these conditions that are potentially proposed by this project. The area in question already has double the state average for hospitalizations due to asthma, leaving them at a huge risk to inhalation from any of this particulate matter debris. The region average here is 187. The state average is only 90. The region average 62. That's for up to the age of 62. For ages 0 to 14, 62, and the state average is 28. So there's a pretty big issue here already with dust inhalation or whatever contributions they're going to have. And not only that, but this area is under average for availability of physicians. We have slightly higher average here for cancer deaths than the state average, 176 to the average of the state is 169. Area in question is 37% minority population. The area in question already statistically displays higher child mortality rates, higher preterm birth rates, and higher infant death rates than state averages. These are all NCDEQ statistics from the Environmental Justice Mapping Tool. So any of these impacts that I've just mentioned would, to some degree be proven to contribute to accelerate those impacts, to possibly see more widespread impacts, to maybe change the severity and increase. Thank you. And for the most part, everyone here covered it. Again, we have specific concerns over particulate matter 2.5 and 10. Included in the appendices from my report here is effects on cattle and other performances, which goes from acceptable levels. And also a lot of the houses here are much older, and even though 0.8 to 0.9 inches a second of the, let me see back here to the beginning. Understood.
Don't feel under pressure.
I'm just looking quickly. It's different to be standing up. It's so hot in here and everybody is so tired. But the disturbances from the ground blasting could be up to 0.9 inches a second. And studies have shown that the human impacts, they can actually fill those impacts down to 0.2. And cosmetic damages to houses can start at 0.2 up to 0.9. And even though 2.0 would be the greatest threat to structural integrity damage for homes, they can actually occur as low as 0.2 to 0.4. So consideration, that is a study in the 80s, which is the most recent that the U.S. Actually recognizes. So take into account that some of these homes in this area are hundreds of years old. Not only those, the outbuildings, barns, things of that nature, but I'll submit this to you and you can go over these very boring and detailed documents.
Thank you, sir. Well, we are down to we have 2 or 3 more speakers left. Depends. Next one is Dawn Lee Doherty.
Hi, my name is Dawn Leith Doherty. I live at 2685 Ridgeville Road. Our historic home is directly across Ridgeville Road from the proposed quarry site. When I walk out my front door and cross the street to my mailbox, I am standing on that property. Therefore, my concerns are serious and many. My home is also on the Butterfly Highway with the NC Wildlife Federation, and I'm a certified wildlife habitat with the National Wildlife Federation. Our 130-year-old home, my dream home, was built in 1890. Sits on the original brick and mortar foundation, and she retains the original plaster and wire lath walls. Maintaining such a home is a labor of love for my husband and I. And the prospect of persistent mining and blasting adjacent to our home, directly across the street where my bedroom windows face as well, is terrifying. The operator downplays the blasting as only twice a week and describes the effect as a momentary vibration. We see that as 2 times a week after week, year after year. They plan to detonate a charge forceful enough to fracture the bedrock, with vibrations traveling far enough to shake our aging home. Such ground vibrations are one of the fundamental problems in the industry and are known to cause severe damage to nearby structures. Taken from Stephen Pulliam's report, residents occupying currently homes on Ridgeville Road have expressed interest and concern of the effect of quarry-related noise as well on pollinators and seed-dispersing wildlife, such as honeybees and birds. Multiple studies have shown negative impacts on pollinators and seed-dispersing wildlife caused by man-made pollution. And we are aspiring beekeepers as well. We moved there to retire there and take care of this beautiful Victorian home. We have a hobby farm. We would like to probably have chickens at some point. I am also an herbalist and an aromatherapist, and I had planned on growing a lot of my own herbs and possibly having my own beeswax for my products and healing salves that I make. With each detonation, fine particulates are also released to the air, which can harm my potential beekeeping operation, my herbalist operation. They pose a severe health risk to our community. I'm a passionate gardener and an aspiring beekeeper, and my husband and I spend as much time as possible outdoors. If approved, we will be forced to reconsider foregoing our passions to limit our exposure to these hazards. There was more I wanted to say, but a lot of it's been covered already. I just would like to say that in closing, I really appreciate you being here tonight and hearing all of our concerns. And on a personal basis, I just find it unacceptable that an industry with this kind of environmental impact could come into our residential community, potentially damage our homes, especially homes as old as mine, alter the landscape forever, pollute the air, deplete and corrupt our water with no recourse for the citizens. This is predatory, and this will negatively alter this quiet pastoral community, prevent new residents from moving here, and cause others to leave. The negative impacts will be disruptive and far-reaching to this community. Thank you.
Good evening. Before I read this, I would like to thank everyone behind me for attending tonight. I'm thankful to our State Representative Greg Meyer for coming. I'm grateful for my other 2 colleagues on the Board of Commissioners for being here tonight. And everything I've heard is relevant and important to this county. And I just want the citizens and this panel to know that we've heard the concerns. We give them credit for the points that have been made, and we hope that you all will consider them. What you have witnessed here this evening is no spectacle. It's no show. These are all good, honest, sincere, family-oriented citizens of Caswell County from all walks of life. These selfless individuals are here for their families. They are here for their children. They are here for their grandchildren, and for generations of citizens, past, present, and future. I am here both as a fellow citizen, having been raised less than 5 miles from the area of focus, and I am here as one of their representatives serving on the Caswell County Board of Commissioners. And like this has been previously said in the last few comments, I'm not going to spend the next few minutes of my time explaining points that have already been presented to you. I am here to speak for the many who don't have a voice, for those that don't have the luxury of being here tonight. The site selection for this quarry, in one word, is an absolute travesty. It will destroy the peaceful living that so many generations of this community have enjoyed and for which they have worked, lived, and prayed future generations would enjoy as well. I spent an afternoon a few weeks ago riding around the area of focus, and I literally could not imagine, I could not envision, and I could literally not stomach the idea of such an industry in that location. And I will not recommend nor support such an industry that treats a community this way. I am not against business. I'm not against quarries. I simply believe a community should have a voice in these decisions. This is very personal to me too. And what you see here tonight, what you have heard, simply put, is the will of the people. I am here because their voice matters. Their family's future matters. The health of this community matters. The environmental future of this county matters, and to the counties that surround us. This quarry, because of its proximity to areas that are residential, streams, wells, a lake, these will impact the way people live from day to day, their health, and upon the environment for miles around. There is so much vacant land in our great state where natural resources for this industry abound. You may think Caswell County is rural and therefore vulnerable. I believe you've seen the opposite of that tonight. What I have heard for months on the Board of Commissioners from concerned residents who have addressed us, and what I see here tonight affirms the faith that I have always had my entire life as a resident of this county. This place matters. You have heard the voice of the people from the areas this quarry will negatively impact. As a citizen of this great county and as one of their elected representatives, I implore you, give our future a chance.
Thank you all. Well, this concludes the list of people who have signed up. I will ask at this point if there's anybody else that wishes to speak. It is late, and so I also want to ask if there is a representative of the applicant here for a brief statement, if they are willing to do so. If not, we can, I would like to thank everyone for attending. It is. Oh. Okay.
My name is Sylvia. My husband is Gene Abear. And we live at 115 Beaver Falls Drive, Prospect Hill. We live within the 1,100 feet of the proposed quarry. We know it's going to affect our water rights, our property values, and the environment for sure. Plus, it just makes the air quality not breathable. I say this because my husband has a lung condition, PCD. If you don't know, it's primary ciliary disease. He has difficulty breathing. With the soot in the air, it would make it even more difficult for him. We also have a granddaughter who suffers from asthma, a grandson with autism, and SPD, which is a sensory processing disorder, and anxiety, which will increase due to the noise and concern over our environment and in the environment he lives in. We also understand that our water will be compromised, which will be devastating, as we are all on well water, as I'm sure a lot of us here are. Mother Nature gave us clean air and water, not a polluted or lowered air quality, or less water in which to take care of our community, our livestock, our farms, from which many here make a living. With the issues the rock quarry will bring, tell us who suffers from this and who will benefit. Surely not us as a community or the wildlife, not our livestock, and especially not our environment. We do not want or need this quarry in our neighborhood, nor does Mother Nature. Thank you.
Okay, again, thank you everyone for attending the public hearing tonight and for the important comments and questions raised. Department will review the items presented tonight as they related to General Statute 74-51 of the Mining Act of 1971. The proceedings of this public hearing will remain open for a period of 10 days from tonight or until November 14, 2019 for the filing of additional written comments to be included in the official hearing summary. I will prepare for the Director of Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources. Please send 3 copies of any written comments to me at the following address. I believe you have that address in the letters that you received, but I will just state it. Samir Dumpour, Regional Engineer of Washington Regional Office, Dimmler, 943 Washington Square Mall, Washington, North Carolina, 27889. Okay, she's reminding me that there are some brochures back there with my name and address on it, so if you on the way out, you can pick it up and have it handy. Please note that even though the public hearing summary will close on November 14, 2019, the department will continue to accept written public comments on this application throughout the application review process until decision is made. At this point, is there any questions? There is one. Yes, ma'am. Judy, do you want to answer that?
If we ask for some more information, we'll put that letter up on our website. If we deny it, we'll put that up on our website. So it'll be there for everybody to see. So just keep an eye on the website. Yes, or you can call.
All right. Okay, so if there's no more questions, then this public hearing is now adjourned. Thank you again for coming.
We invite anyone who would like to join us in our efforts with open arms. It is not too late for Caswell County. In fact, it is exactly the right time. It is not too late.